Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, October 18th, and this is a regular meeting of the Brattleboro Select Board. We convened at 5:30 and entered into executive session, and at that time I asked, but I will ask again, Patrick, was this meeting properly warned?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. In that case, I would look for a motion to approve the minutes. Or do we not have any minutes?
I don't think we
Oh,
have
have no
minutes.
Oh my goodness.
There
no
were so many
minutes.
at the last meeting.
There were so many last
Give
meeting?
it a
Yeah.
break.
And it was just last week. Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Well, I was gonna take that to gather myself for my chair remarks, but oh, Liz?
Could I ask you to put my full name up?
Oh,
It just
yes.
says Elizabeth.
I'll look to Steve to make the change when he has a moment. He will, Liz.
Thank you.
Okay, so there are no minutes to approve. Thank you. And so I'll move to chair remarks. So two things. First is a little bit of bookkeeping.
Liz.
My last name has an O in it, not an A.
Steve has a lot of demands.
He's got a lot going on at once, Liz.
Yeah, I'm just saying it was wrong, and if he could fix it, because then people won't be able to get in touch with me if they spell my name wrong.
Request to unpin. Oh. Oh, so
Did we pin last time?
what,
We did.
we didn't pin last time, but somehow we kept her up there.
Well, because we only allow certain cameras on.
Yes.
System with 3 cameras is related.
Oh, so I think what it is then is unpin but grid view. Maybe that's what it is. Gallery view. There it is. Okay. And then her name is misspelled, if you wouldn't mind.
So instead of the A, it's the O.
Oh,
Thank you.
no problem. All right. So now that we're getting that handled, so back to chair remarks. So bookkeeping first. So one of the things, if you notice from this agenda, is that we didn't have the monthly EMS update on here. And so I wanted to sort of explain the agenda setting committee's thinking on this. We were looking at what we had that was time sensitive and needed to happen on this agenda, which were specifically the AP Triton preliminary presentation, because they're actually here in town, so it needs to happen today. And then the charter review commission discussion that is very time sensitive, as you'll hear about. And anticipating those being pretty long discussions, we decided that instead of having the EMS update today, we would push it to the next select board meeting, which is on November 1st. So it's like a little bit later, but it's going to be for the October update. And with that as well, the agenda setting committee is going to continue to put a monthly EMS update on when it's possible until we get further guidance from the rest of the select board if we want to do something differently. But I think we've all sort of spoken to how important transparency is with this transition. So we want to keep making sure that the board and the community is updated about how EMS is going with Golden Cross. So that's my first thing. And then the second is, I can find it. It's just a quick announcement from the town clerk. So election day is going to be held on Tuesday, November 8th at the American Legion from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. All active registered voters were mailed a ballot by the state. If you have not received your ballot yet, you can call the town clerk's office at 802-251-8157. And Hillary will be able to help you out. You can return your ballots via mail, the drop box that's in the municipal center, or you can actually come into the office, municipal center parking lot, or you can come into the office and go to the town clerk. Or you can also bring your filled out ballot to the American Legion Post 5 on election day and put it in a drop box there. All ballots must be received by 7 p.m. on election day, November 8th. If you would prefer to vote on election day in person and not use the mailed in ballot, you can feel free to do that, but you should bring the mailed ballot with you uncompleted. If you were to forget it, that's okay, and you could still vote, but there's gonna be one more step that you'll need to complete. And so you should anticipate it taking a little longer if you go to the polling station without the mailed-in ballot as well. So, yeah, maybe we'll see you on, election day at, the American Legion. And with that, I conclude my chair remarks and I pass it over to interim town manager Patrick Moreland.
No comments this evening.
Excellent. Yeah, great. All right, board remarks. Daniel.
I have a question, and maybe I just missed it because I was looking at the schedule for upcoming meetings. If somebody fills out that ballot at home.
Yeah.
And then brings it, there isn't a situation where you could screw it up, right? Like you either fill it out at home and put it in the box, or you fill it out at home and you physically bring it to the polling place on election day. That's okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely okay. And I am a justice of the peace, so I help at the poll. So I speak from experience here, being in the front section. We actually have a kind of drop box there. So
Okay.
it's almost like identical to dropping it at the drop box in the municipal.
I see.
center. And you theoretically could even have that filled out and not want to use it.
Uh-huh.
And then you could vote in person there too. But you
Okay.
have to give that in.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That
Other,
concludes my comments.
that concludes your comments? Okay, other board comments or committee reports?
I'll just make.
Yeah.
One comment. For anybody paying very close attention to last meeting, I guess all the board heads out there who watched the select board meeting, I did make a request about a preliminary ARPA discussion. And much like the other reasons why we had to shift things around to make sure there was plenty of time tonight, I thought it was fair to move that to the first meeting in November. So I agreed with that. Just wanted to state that for the record.
Yeah,
And I just, because of the election excitement, I just want to report that I get a report on how many people have turned in ballots, and in Brattleboro alone, it's now up to about 1,500. So that's pretty
Wow.
impressive. Pretty impressive for early voting.
excellent. Thank you, Tim. Other board members? Yes, no? Liz?
No, thank you.
Great. In that case, I will move to public participation. So, for those of you joining us for the first time, public participation is an opportunity for the public to speak on an item that's not on the agenda, or if they wish to have the select board pull one of the items from the consent agenda to be put at the end of the warrant agenda items. So, I'll look first to the to Zoom, and I see a hand up, maybe. Nope, no hand up there. And I'll look to the, I think I see someone maybe. So if you could just state, you come up to the microphone, and if you just state your name and where you're from for the record, that'd be great.
I'm Renee Walliver. I am a resident. I am a parent. I am the operations director for the Boys and Girls Club. And I am sad to be here again, talking about the same issue. When I was here last, we talked about the unsafe conditions in the transportation building and all along Platt Street and the Whetstone Bridge. We talked about the ongoing tag sale situation in the Elm Street parking lot. And I was happy to see that after a few weeks, the Elm Street lot tag sale has ended. And while the red bus remains there, the lot feels a lot safer. Unfortunately, also since the last meeting, we had an incident with the Boys and Girls Club van parked in the transportation building. At some point over Indigenous Peoples Weekend, the height of tourism season here, the catalytic converter was stolen from our van. While it was parked in the garage, rendering it undrivable. The estimated cost of this repair is $2,400. And after it is repaired, we once again have to park it in the transportation building and hope that it doesn't happen again. That $2,400 can and should be used to support youth programs, to feed kids, to provide scholarships, to offer a safe and welcoming place. If we need to use it for repairs to a vehicle vandalized while parked in a town-owned facility that we pay $1,000 a year to park in. This has wreaked havoc for the club, the schools, our families, and our kids. We have had to scramble to figure out how to get members to our programs. The inaction of this town to deal with the situation at the transportation building has a ripple effect throughout the community. It has affected all the Brattleboro public schools who rely on us to pick up kids for our after-school programs. Sorry, it's been a week. It has affected our families, some of the most vulnerable in our community, who need a safe place for their kids to go after school while they are at work. It has affected our kids who don't understand why someone would do this to their van. It has affected the club as we have had to come up with a solution. And I'd like to at this point thank Youth Services, who has lent us their daily work vehicle. They have a Forester that can seat 4 kids, which isn't nearly enough, but thank you to them for letting us use their vehicle. Everyone is frustrated, angry, and demoralized by what happened. However, they are not shocked and they are not surprised. Downtown is a mess. The transportation is within 500 feet of the club, as in a drug-free school zone. The transportation building is a municipal building. There are town employees there. People have to go there to conduct town business. Yet there continues to be active drug use and criminal activity. This board has visited the issue of downtown safety many times over the years, and this current discussion started in the spring has focused on cameras. This board asked department heads to look at the camera situation back in May. However, when I was here last month, it was clear that the board had not received any updates, proposals, and no action had been taken. We had hoped the safety issue would have made it to the agenda, but it hasn't. So we just have a couple questions. What is happening with improved cameras and lighting, and when can residents and business expect increased safety and security in the transportation building? Is there any movement to have a police substation in the transportation building? I know there's been discussion about losing rental income, but I cannot imagine you would find any tenant who would want to rent that space in its current condition. And finally, has there been any outreach to Groundworks, HCRS, other social service organizations who can base their staff in the lobby? Is it possible for these organizations to run support groups, AA meetings, other kinds of functions? They are right on site. Can the space be activated with agencies to provide support to the community, hanging out and living at the transportation building? Thank you.
Renee, thank you very much for your comments and coming and bringing these to, unfortunately, to the board again. I want to direct 1 and 2 to Patrick, and I want to speak to 3, but let's take them in order. So Patrick, I think the board has made it very clear that we would like an item coming to the board on cameras in the municipal center, and then also a proposal for what it would look like for more than just in the municipal center for the board's consideration. And then I know that there's been some action taken in the transportation, I meant transportation center, in the transportation center. And if you could speak to those a little bit, and if there's any additional things in the works for the board to hear now, I think that would be helpful.
Sure. So, couple of things on one, to question number 1 about the cameras at the transportation center. That's a really, really, really good point. We were just talking about that, I think 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think, in the agenda setting meeting, we had discussed putting, cameras on, and I think we failed to remember it when we were putting this meeting together. I can plan to have an item, on the next agenda, which would be 11-1. You know, long story short, I have a reasonable sense as to the cost for a new camera system at the transportation center. And the question will be, you know, is that what the board would like to invest in?
Yeah.
And it's pretty simple and straightforward. Need to write it up. I've, you know, got the number in my head. I could say it out loud now if you wished, or save it for 2 weeks and put it in a memo. But that is a piece of business that we've been working on, and you know, the board could take action towards. if
Could
were
you say
so
it out loud?
Yeah, it's about $70,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
You know, that would be a whole new system to replace the one which is currently in the system or in the building that was installed in 2004, is really archaic and frankly was probably not even a good choice for its day. And what do I mean by that? I mean that they are somewhat frail. They were probably inexpensive. And as has been pointed out, the transportation center is kind of a rough location. So a camera system, which is, one might have in their residence, is not what we're looking for. We're looking for something that's a little closer to bulletproof. And so it comes with a bit of a price tag, but I'll write that up and bring it back to the board for the next meeting. And if you're ready to take action on that, then we could put that out to bid and move forward at that time. The second one, a substation. This one is more or less, it's a little further behind. There is some work to be done in the space. Every time I peel back the layer at the transportation center, I find new challenges. We've talked previously about how the stairwells were installed with interior quality construction and materials. And yet they were outside and exposed to the elements, and that led them to rust, and that led to, hundreds of thousands of dollars of replacement costs. In the period of time where we are in between tenants, the Dottie space is currently leased up and will be for about a year. The Experience Good space is empty. I've had some folks go in and take a look at the Experience Good space to chase after what the Experience Good staff told me about water leaking into the facility. And what we found was not so much water leaking into the facility, but condensation occurring in the facility. I mean, this is not particularly interesting for somebody who's interested in public safety. I understand that. But the building's construction is made out of these, concrete segments. Concrete segments which are not in any way insulated. So you've got heated conditioned space. You've got a weather, concrete ceiling. You got a heated space, hits cold ceiling, turns into condensation, rains on the underside of the false ceiling, is rusting out and destroying the lighting in there. So in order for us to, even to reoccupy with something similar to Experience Goods, we're going to need to do some work in there. And how much that's going to cost, I don't know. I have met with the project manager with which we did the police and fire facility. And, we talked about with the police department, all right, what are some space needs and who else might we be able to put together a tenancy there? Maybe make space for an officer or two, maybe include the parking enforcement, maybe have the animal control officer dispatched from that location. How many different legitimate municipal offices could we situate down there? And we came up with a basic idea. I think before I brought it to the board, I think it might be worth getting a little bit of a sketch put together. So you got something to look at. It's going to be costly. It's going to be really costly. Construction costs have been, they've been going up and up and up. So, if you can imagine something on the order of a 3,000 square foot space at, call it, $150 a square foot, we're looking at a significant expense. And as to whether or not that would ultimately change the conditions that exist on Flat Street, I don't know. I don't know. But continue working on that. Honestly, I'm moving less quickly on that as I'd like to. The budget has been more present. But I could be back in 2 weeks with the camera system.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for the update. And then on 3, so the town actually has a meeting planned, as far as I'm aware, with Groundworks a little later in the month of October. And I think that adding that a question as to how Groundworks or another agency in our community could be more engaged in that area will be added to the agenda of that discussion, because I think it's very much, it's a really good idea. The answer to your question is no, we haven't had any conversation yet, but I think it's a good one, a good idea, and we should. So, yeah, so November 1st for cameras, and if we can get it out of Patrick, maybe we can even put something on for a preliminary on, I think what I'm hearing also is that the board needs to decide if we feel comfortable with the financial impact to the parking fund that would occur if we no longer rented out one of those spaces in the transportation center. Am I understanding that money?
I think the board will need to have a discussion as to, so for example, if we were to move forward and build a facility
Yeah.
within the transportation center. Should the parking fund pay for that? Should the general fund pay for that?
Yeah.
It's entirely up to the board. If it's the general fund, should the general fund occupancy pay rent to the parking fund? I mean, these are small details, but they are things I think, considerations that should be considered.
Yeah.
Just to give a slightly similar example. We run a water and sewer utility, but each of the general fund assets that has a water connection pays to the utility. So, this building pays a water bill. The police station pays a water bill. So,
Oh, I understand. So if we were to put a substation there, maybe
maybe that would be a tenant.
Okay. Okay.
Something to think about.
Okay, not all satisfactory answers, but some. Daniel,
Are you finished?
yes.
Renee, I'm trying to ask this question artfully and I can't. So you are a peer of other downtown organizations like the ones you named. Have you spoken with them?
Have you spoken with those organizations?
Yes. Okay. And how did that go?
Well, I didn't personally have the conversation. Our director did, so I don't want to speak for her and what happened in those conversations. Because they're comfortable doing that.
Okay.
But what I can say is that,
Renee, do you mind standing up and speaking to the
of
microphone?
course, sorry about that. I usually have a loud enough voice.
No, it's my
Hear me.
fault. I should be the one.
That we have had conversations with Josh at least, and that, one of his suggestions was to go down and just talk to the people down there.
Mhm.
And that's, out of our level of expertise. We are experts in working with kids, in doing prevention work with kids, in keeping kids safe.
Mhm.
Our experience and expertise is not working with the homeless population or the addicted population. So we need to have willing partners, and we all want to be on the same team. And sometimes it feels like that we are alone.
Yeah.
So, we've had these conversations and they're the experts,
Right.
right? Those organizations are the experts. We are not the experts. We're
Right.
asking the experts to come in and work with the population to help keep our town safe.
Yeah.
That's what we're asking.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I work for an organization that does similar work. I would not say I was an expert in those areas that you're talking about either. I actually used to work for the club as well. I drove that van in my first summer doing camp.
Then you know how important it is for the kids to have.
No, I
access to-
absolutely do. Yeah.
To safe,
Yeah.
reliable transportation. to
Let me
get them
finish my
to and
point.
From the schools, yep.
My experience in human services work in this town is that everyone is, particularly these last couple of years, everyone is working real hard, doing the best that they can. And so I would be more than happy to be a participant in a conversation involving human services, social services, education organizations in the town. So long as that's a conversation that isn't about pointing fingers at one another, because the problems that we face in our town are really challenging, right? And this board is doing the best it can, and this town staff is doing the best it can. And I'm sorry that your catalytic converter was taken, right? And I can also, think of other people I know for whom that has happened as well. And so, it hurts us, right? When these things happen to us. And I hope that we can kind of work together to see about moving towards solutions, never mind even like finding solutions, but moving towards them to start with. So I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. I'd be happy to sit in a meeting involving some of these other organizations, but I want to kind of like, just kind of put it out there that I know all of the folks that are working in those places are tapped out with their basic commitments already, never mind, stuff that's on top
And
of it.
so are we at the club.
And that's
And
what I'm
we're-
saying.
We're completely tapped out as well. And
Yeah.
this situation makes our work incredibly more difficult.
Yeah,
And so we want to look to the experts and we want to work with the town and we want to work with whoever will work with us to help the situation improve.
hmm
And like I said, like I can go down there and talk to the folks but I'm not a caseworker. I'm not a social worker. I'm not a substance abuse expert. I'm not a homeless expert. I'm good at what I do and that's not it. So we do rely on other agencies, everybody to hold their leg of the stool. And so we're just asking like, how can all of us work together for the same common goal? It's not about throwing anybody under the bus. It's
Yeah.
about what are your skills? If someone said the kids in our town aren't getting enough to eat, I would expect us to try to step up and figure out how to make that happen.
hmm
And so that's all we're asking is
Mhm.
for everybody to get on the same page. And how do we make the town safe for everyone who lives here?
I hear you.
All right, thank you very much.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
And this is not really talking about, just want to remind my fellow board members
I
that
see Liz, I see Liz.
when we move forward with these discussions, we also have to keep in mind that this is largely staffing. If we bring in cameras, the cameras need to be watched. If we bring in a substation, that area has to be personneled. So it's something that has to move forward along with these ideas, because no one idea is going to fix this problem. We're going to have to be very cognizant and be up to the date on how we're doing with staffing levels at the police department, for
Yeah.
instance.
I have an excellent point. Yeah,
Thank you.
Liz.
I just want to add to this conversation that it was my understanding that the snow block has some community space that might be available to a nonprofit such as Groundworks to have resources there. I know they do at other facilities, and I wondered whether that could be in the idea mix for discussion when you all have that discussion.
Okay. All right, yeah, I'm going to look to the next person to speak during public comment if there is anyone. I don't see any hands on Zoom, and room, you've got 1 moment and then I'm gonna move on. Nobody? All right. So in that case, I'm gonna move to agenda item 7, which is the consent agenda. Patrick, you want to speak briefly to the 2 items on the consent agenda?
Yes, of course. So in the consent agenda this evening, there are 2 items. First one, of course, is a revised budget schedule for fiscal 24. After taking into consideration the recommendations that are coming out of the board. 2 weeks ago, we've removed November 8th and added December 13th and done a little restructuring. So I'm hoping that meets with everyone's approval. And the second item is to accept and appropriate a $15,530 justice assistance grant from the Bureau of Justice for the Brattleboro Police Department.
Great, thank you very much, Patrick. And I think as we all remember from last week, it was an exciting moment where the consent agenda, an item was pulled. So, the apparatus worked. Board, is there any item that you wish to pull from the consent agenda?
Not from me. Thank you.
Excellent. In that case, I'd look for a motion.
I'll move
Yes.
to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Tim has made a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. Board members, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that carries 5-0. Thank you very much. We now look for a motion. Jess,
I move that we convene as liquor commissioners.
Jess has moved that we convene as liquor commissioners. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. We move on to into agenda item 8A, the Shangzi Food Market Second Class Liquor License and Tobacco License. Is this Hillary or Patrick? Patrick.
Sure. So, well, you've nailed it. It is the Jiangxi Food Mart is applying for a second class liquor license so they can, sell six packs and what have you. And a tobacco license. They're at 228 Canal Street. Their application has been reviewed by all town staff, or not all town staff, but each of the town departments, police, fire, public works, and the town clerk's office, and we recommend your approval. I don't know if there's anyone here.
Oh, yeah, excellent. Please come on up. And if you have if you want to sit at the table for presenters, or you can sit up there. Excellent. Yeah, usually we give this as an opportunity for business owners to speak a little bit to their business. You got the floor, so whatever you have to say.
My name is Ali. I'm from Bennington, Vermont. I have one store there, so I just got this store last week. So basically, I'm from Afghanistan, so I just heard there is a lot of people coming from there. I meet some of them, so I'm one of them who came like 8-10 years ago
Yep.
and started my own business here. And now I will try to help that people to build up their business or small business, or plus we have the kitchen and we'll try to give some our culture food to the people of the town. So we will work with the people of the town. We will try to help them with the cheapest price that we are doing in Bennington. Once we were at the newspaper as well with the cheapest in the whole town.
Wow.
So we'll try our best to give our best service and cheap price for the gas and all that stuff. And I just want to hand over the sales tax. There was some typing mistake. I hand it over to you.
Yeah, I will, as the representative of the town of Brattleboro, I will. take that. Absolutely. I will make sure this gets the town clerk and we will figure this out.
What is, I'm sorry, I'm lost on the concern.
It said Bennington and not Brattleboro.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So I just updated the sentence today.
Okay.
That's the address, they put the wrong town.
Oh, this is for the Department of Taxes, so this actually should go to.
Maybe Hillary could take a
I'm
look
not
at it.
entirely
and
sure, but I'd be happy to discuss it with Hillary in the
Yeah,
morning.
my immense lack of expertise in this particular area means I don't know exactly what to do with this, but we're gonna make sure that.
Just
gets to the right-
update of the name of the town. They put the wrong
Yeah.
town from the State Department.
Yeah.
So what I wanna do is just make sure we have your contact information.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have the town clerk, Hillary Francis, take a look at this and make sure that we figure it out. And if we're not the ones to handle it, we'll make sure to let you know who it is.
From the time we take over the business, still is closed, we are not doing any business, so if it goes quicker, that we
Yeah.
can start our
Yeah.
business, our own open business.
Absolutely.
They're closed from 7-8 days.
All right, well, thank you for the introduction. And Liz has a comment?
Yes, do I understand from the applicant's comments that he intends to employ some of our Afghan refugees?
Yes,
Ali, you wanna, yep.
yes, I already did some of them, and from the day when we'll get the license and start the business, I will give them training. One of them is living just behind our store.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's two of them we are going to train them.
So I just want to thank the applicant and applaud his work and wish him all the best in his business.
Thank you so much.
Other board members? Any questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you. It's an existing location. It gets quite busy, so I wish you great success and
Thanks.
welcome. Thank you.
I have one question, actually. Actually two. One, is there gonna be like prepared food to purchase there? Was that part of what you're saying, like Afghani food as well, or?
Yes, because we have full-fledged kitchen.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll try to make it here.
And then the only other question was for our new residents from Afghanistan refugees that have come to Brattleboro. Have you had any trouble getting in contact with people, or has that not been an issue?
No, because some of them was working with me with the United Nations, so I know them, so,
Excellent.
yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Then I echo Liz, best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll figure that out. All right, board, in that case, I would, look for motion. Jess,
I move that we approve a second-class liquor license and a tobacco license to, oh no.
Hmm.
Chengzi?
you want to give us the pronunciation for, is it, yeah,
It's Changezi, it's
Changezi.
from, Genghis Khan name is Changezi,
Oh.
so the
Ah,
tribe from
geez.
where it
Okay.
belong.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Changezi.
Changezi.
All right. So to approve a second-class liquor license and a tobacco license to Chengezi Food Mart located at 228 Canal Street in Brattleboro.
in Brattleboro. All right, Jess has made a motion to approve a second-class liquor license and a tobacco license to Chengezi Food Mart located at 228 Canal Street in Brattleboro. Board members, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, carries 5-0. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, every time I hear a correct pronunciation, I immediately,
Forget it.
as I start reading, I'm just like, all right, so we move on to agenda item 8B, which is the 2022 seasonal third-class liquor license renewals, which is for some businesses in town who do every 6 months for their renewals instead of yearly. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, I'm not trying to take your job.
No, you're doing good.
Is there, do you want to speak a little more to it, Patrick?
Just a slight bit of additional detail. The three businesses that we're asking the board to approve this evening include Echo Restaurant and Lounge at 69 and 73 Main Street, the Flamingo Diner, which is located at 209 Canal Street, and New England House, which is located at 254 Marlborough Road, and staff recommends your approval.
Excellent. Board members, discussions, questions, comments? Seeing none.
No.
Do I understand, Patrick, that this is kind of the opportunity usually that the board takes when it's the yearly renewal to ask, like, are these businesses like up to date with their, like, other than any violations or anything? That kind of-
That's really something that happens more frequently in, right before April, with the mass of, liquor licenses that are renewed for that year.
Yep.
I can tell you that the three businesses that were in discussion now are all, recommended for your approval and are not owing to the town in any capacity.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, oh, and I should just be making sure, make sure there's no raising hands there and nobody in the public. In that case, board, I'd look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Tim,
To approve the renewal of a third class of the third class liquor licenses for Echo Restaurant and Lounge at 6973 Main Street, the Flamingo Diner at 209 Canal Street, and for New England House at 254 Marlborough Road, all in Brattleboro.
Tim has made a motion to approve the renewal of third-class liquor license for Echo Restaurant and Lounge at 69 and 73 Main Street, Flamingo Diner at 209 Canal Street, and the New England House at 254 Marlborough Road, all in Brattleboro. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Look for a motion. Yes,
I move that we adjourn as liquor commissioners.
Jess has moved that we adjourn as liquor commissioners. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, carries 5-0. Thank you, board. We move on to now, agenda item 9, new business, 9A, the monthly financial report. And I look to Kim, welcome.
All right.
Hello, good evening.
Evening.
In your folders, you have the finance report.
Do you need it tilted down as well?
There we go.
Okay, perfect.
Is that good? Okay. So in your report, you have the finance report through September 30th. We're 3 months into the fiscal year, so about 25% done. So within the general fund, we're about 23% of the annual budget. With the utility fund, we're about 20% of the annual budget. And the 22%, I'm sorry, for the utility fund, and about 20% for the parking fund. We have $3.8 million in outstanding loans as of September 30th. The town's revolving loan fund has $207,000 available for additional grants and loans. And the grant report contains information on 22 active grants and 10 grants in the application process.
Thank you very much for the brief presentation. So we'll start with board members for questions or comments. Board?
I don't really have anything. Nothing jumped out at me. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes?
I do have a question.
Yep. Just start with page number, please.
Okay. Start with page 3 of 16.
Okay.
The use of fund balance. I'm just curious, we had budgeted 300,000. What does that line mean and how does it work?
So if I remember correctly, this was at town meeting in March. It was 300,000 set aside for, I'm looking at Patrick to see if he remembers. Was it set aside for a
And I'm
sidewalk?
listening.
Yeah.
Keep
I
going,
think-
Kim.
No, I think I just read about it today. I think it was set aside for sidewalks and, roads.
Let me jump in. I
Yeah.
honestly don't recall exactly what it was assigned for. It was a series of capital improvements. What I would point out, and we'll discuss this in greater detail when we start tackling the next budget, which is coming up quickly, is that while we budget for the use of fund balance, that number will stay zero in the actual column throughout the course of the entire year. So there is never, the use of fund balance is effectively like, taking from your savings account, right? So it doesn't actually represent a source of revenue for the general fund. And this is one of the peculiarities between budgeting, which is a planning exercise, and accounting, which is something a little bit more rigid and governed by standards boards and things of that nature. So the sort of balance or piece which has been maintained between the town manager's office and the finance department has been, go ahead and show a plan which provides a balanced budget. But in a sense, we're going to have, in an accounting sense, what we're really going to have is a $300,000 deficit as our planned landing space. And that 300,000 will lower the unassigned general fund balance of the general fund for the course of the year.
That makes sense. Thank you for explaining it.
Sure. I hope I didn't step on your toes, Kim.
Not at all.
Sorry.
I've got one ready to
Go
go.
ahead. Why
If
don't
you
you
want,
go
we can
jump
come
right
back to it.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I was gonna say this, but I figured I might as well. Page 8 of 16. And this sort of, I'm guessing, may get touched on in the Triton presentation, but seeing as it is in the financial report, I'm gonna mention it right now as well. So looking at the fire line, actually, I guess it's not page 8, it's page 9. But page 8 is the context because we're looking at staff salaries at 22.9% of budget, which is totally normal. Given that we are 25%, so I guess it's a little underexpended, but not by a lot. And then looking at the overtime line, we budgeted 102,000. We've currently expended 132, which is 129% of budget. I've been keeping an eye on this, as have, a few other people. And I recall mentioning it last time. I'm wondering whether the rate of increase has slowed or whether we expect it to slow. I think that it has.
So as I've spoken to Chief Howard, I mean, we dealt with lots of vacations and short staff times.
Yeah.
And we also have been dealing with COVID.
Yeah.
And that
Oh.
has been back and fast and furious. And, you know, we still need coverage.
Yeah.
So as of right now, you know, we're still dealing with that.
Yeah.
Will it hopefully slow down? Yes, that's the hope.
Right. And I guess, I mean, just to kind of put a point on it, like, I'm not mad at it. I'm just kind of curious about like what we predict, might happen with this line. Like, it's obviously gonna be vastly different than budget. And that's why you have things like fund balance, right? The other lines may well help us out with this as well in the fullness of time, but it was something that's been brought up before, and I thought it was appropriate to at least kind of make some space for it now as well. And I expect we'll talk more about that particular thing later.
Definitely.
Liz, please.
Adding to that conversation, there's also, as we all know, a shortage of police officers. So I'm assuming that some of that overtime is also for police.
I'm
Just as-
talking
Just as
about
a fire.
And if you look at the police staff and overtime, it's a little different story.
Yeah. What was that? Did you have a question, Liz, or just?
No, I'm just, not only is it, COVID related everywhere, but it's police and it's fire and I'm sure there's overtime in a lot of municipal services because of shortages due to illness and so forth.
Okay, if I don't,
Another question.
yes, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I
My
apologize.
question was about the utilities fund on page 1 of the utilities fund.
It's one of the utilities.
It's just
Wait a
couple of
second,
one second.
negative
Yeah.
numbers in the revenue. I'm just curious how that works.
So as you know, we didn't bill yet for the first
Okay.
quarter, which that will happen next month, right? So these negative numbers were some credits that were given to last quarter for overbilling. There, we had one particular bigger issue where somebody wasn't there. And that we ended up having to give them a credit. We can't credit a prior budget. So the credit comes here, and once we do the billing, it will all flush out.
So to speak.
All right, I'll open it up to the room and Zoom for public comment. I don't see any hands there, and I do see one hand in the room. Welcome. You can just state your name and where you're from.
Kate O'Connor from Brattleboro. I had no intention to get up and talk about this, but we're talking about the 300,000 fund balance. Where in the budget, and I'm looking at it on my phone, so I apologize. Where in the budget is the pool of funds that we're putting together for alternative policing
Community
ideas?
safety.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
is that?
The transfers.
It's,
Oh, is that
you know,
what?
what, and it's funny, this was a pretty long discussion we had about where to put
It's in
things.
transfer.
Right.
And I think that we were gonna take it out of police and then we kept it in police.
Okay.
So I think it's in police,
Okay.
but Patrick?
Yeah, that's largely true. It's budgeted in the police department, but the actual will show itself as the transfer out.
Yeah.
The very last page of
Page
the
15.
expenditure.
Yeah. It's on
Okay.
Page 15.
So for those following along at home, page 15 of the general fund,
At the very bottom.
at the very bottom,
Well,
or not?
yeah,
It's the last line. Transfer to community safety.
So that just is 100 though.
because that's what was
That's for-
transferred in that
Yep.
budget,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right.
That's
this is
correct.
2023,
That balance of the fund.
Yes.
Correct.
correct.
Okay. All right. Well, not seeing any more questions or comments from the community. Thank you very much, Kim. I think we can take a vote. Daniel,
I move to approve the financial report as presented.
Daniel has moved to approve the financial report as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kim.
All right. All right, so we move on to new business, agenda item 9B. The Brattleboro Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, proposed changes. This is going to be a second reading and possible adoption. And I'm gonna look to Sue. I think it's gonna raise her hand. Is that accurate or is it?
I too am gonna look to Sue.
Okay.
I think I'm here. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Sue.
Hi. So I'm here tonight to request that you do a second reading and then adopt proposed changes to the Chapter 4, which is the bicycle ordinance for the town of Brattleboro. We talked about it at the last meeting, but these changes have come about by a citizen, Alice Sharks, who has done a lot of bicycle education in the community, identifying that our ordinance was out of date. And so she worked with the police department to kind of review the ordinances and review the statute and bring them into alignment. And so a couple of things it also does, not just cleaning up sections that are no longer in state statute, but that some of the provisions that we had as well. So one of the things we had was a requirement that all bicycles be registered. And that's something that just hasn't happened over the years. And I think has brought in $20 or less in revenue every year. So, so it eliminates the need to do that. At the first reading of the ordinance, there was discussion of the fact that there was some language removed that previously it was unlawful to ride with both without both hands on the bicycle, or to sit on a crossbar or on the handlebars, or even ride tandem. And that has been removed. And there was a question as to whether that was in state statute. It was not. So, so that's the answer to that one. So yeah, that's kind of an overview of the ordinance changes, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you very much, Sue. And so, yeah, the board has discussed this a little bit at the last select board meeting, but looks like we've got some more discussion. Jess?
Just really quick.
No, take as much time as we need.
The backup materials, the amendment to the Code of Ordinances has the entire article struck out. So you just take a look. So the actual amendments are listed at the top, right, or and in the memo, but and it is not that we are striking this entire content, right, Sue?
Yes, that is correct. I'm looking at it briefly. I
Kind of snuck by us, maybe.
yeah.
Gotta be honest with you, this doesn't look right.
It doesn't look right.
What do we do with that?
Was this the is this the same as what was before us last Tuesday?
So this is formatted in a different way. This was worked on by other staff, so I'm sorry that it's kind of the more formal amendment that would be posted everywhere. So it definitely doesn't look right to me.
Okay, well, now I look at the town attorney, Mr. Attorney Fisher. So yeah, what do we do if the backup material isn't correct for a second reading?
Do you have a copy anywhere of the correct version? And if not, you could simply postpone this to your next meeting would be the safest thing to do. But I asked that preliminary question insofar as if I could run into the other room and somebody shows me where it is, I'm happy to get it, but
I could have sworn at the last meeting, there was sections that were crossed out and
Yes,
sections
some
that were
were
not.
I absolutely agree, which
Yeah.
made the first reading fine, but the problem is if we don't have it for this meeting.
Well, I think,
Yeah,
aren't you saying that we could rely on the first if there had been no changes between the
if
two?
there are no changes, but I don't have it in the other room, but if somebody says, you do?
Yeah.
Oh,
Liz?
I think we should wait.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Sue. Is this,
No problem.
is there any issue for,
No
postponing
issue.
that on your end?
No, no issues.
I think simply to try to do it, just make sure we're
that's
doing
fine.
it correctly.
Yeah, I did.
And I'll just add, while I've got you, speaking, I just had one question. If the town had enforced a ordinance that was no longer in line with state statute, what happens?
Well, probably wouldn't be enforceable if there were any appeals of
Yeah.
it. If the authorizing statute or if the terms of it weren't in the authorizing statute, it'd be very difficult to enforce that. So
Yeah.
hence why this is being amended at this, well, at your next, you're gonna say at this time, but it's safe enough to put this off to the next meeting. It's not changing things in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it came up that we have, a lot of ordinances that may not be, you know,
And it makes sense to clean
Yeah.
those up and get them into compliance so that if we're gonna have an ordinance, you wanna be able to enforce it.
Okay, board, well, in that case, I don't think we need to take a vote. We're just going to table this and we will bring it back. It's amazing how just in this meeting, a lot of things have made their way onto the next slide version.
Yes. Yes.
It's
This
amazing.
should be a light lift next time.
Okay, so.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you very much, Sue.
And Alice.
Oh, and Alice, yeah. Well, we'll have an opportunity to thank them again. Okay, so we're gonna move on to, actually, I should wait if there's any hands, if anyone wanted to speak on that before we move on. I don't see any in the room. Okay, so in that case, we're gonna move on to new business agenda item 9C, which is the EMS feasibility study preliminary findings presentation by the gentleman of AP Triton, and I believe representatives of the fire department are gonna join us as well.
Need another chair over there?
Yeah,
Oh.
Tom wants to stay. Rich wants to stand.
There's extra chairs if anybody needs.
Standing for a while.
So,
Thanks, Jess.
So I just wanted to give a little bit of context before I turn the floor over to you guys. So yeah, the town of Brattleboro, as I think everyone who's watching is aware, had one EMS provider up until June 30th of 2022. We then shifted to a different EMS provider and also changed the sort of structure of how EMS services are provided in the town of Brattleboro into what has kind of become more colloquially spoken in the board's discussions as like a hybrid model where Brattleboro Fire is providing more services in EMS than it was previously under the rescue contract. That said, that they were providing EMS services under the rescue contract as well. And so in the summer, the Brattleboro Selectboard signed a contract with AP Triton to do a feasibility study to look at those 3 different options moving forward with EMS services in the town. This is a preliminary findings discussion, as I understand it, for AP Triton to sort of speak to the select board about this issue and sort of tell us where they're at. They've been spending multiple months now with members of our municipal government on preparing for tonight and also preparing for a final report, which I understand will hopefully be in December. And they were also going to be presenting tomorrow at the firehouse at 6:15.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, okay, at 6 o'clock, thank you. And that will be accessible either in person or over Zoom. And can people find the Zoom link on our website?
Yes, they can find it on the town website,
Yep.
fire department website, all the social media
platforms that's on there.
Great.
It's also gonna be covered by BCTV.
And it will be covered by BCTV. So, with that, I hand it, if you can introduce yourselves, we haven't met y'all before, so we'd love to.
Well, I have two folks here tonight from AP Triton, and I'll let these two introduce themselves.
I'm not used to sitting before boards. so-
That's, if you, yeah,
Yeah.
there's
I
a
mean,
couple
we-
different.
All right, I'm
options
gonna
here.
come right here and I'm gonna talk to you the way I should.
Yes, absolutely.
Show respect.
Oh yeah, just try to bring that mic with you.
First, may I have the presentation? That would be helpful. And do I have access to move that presentation or do I just smile?
I think Steve is, you're gonna smile and Steve will take care of it.
Okay, that's good. On behalf of AP Triton, my name is Rick Buchanan. Myself and Tom are here. Without getting into details that probably don't serve your purpose. We both come with each 33 years in this business. And now, as both of us have recently retired, we focus full-time and we travel the country and we work specifically for AP Triton in providing some guidance for these kind of questions. The short answer to that is we do this a lot. And so I think it's going to be a very useful purpose. This evening, the primary role is to just give you an update of what we are, explain the kind of the system or the process that we're going to use to make the decision. I'm going to show this to you very quickly. Slow me down if you would certainly like to. And then I'm going to offer up all the time you want to answer questions. So I'll put it on your shoulders and you can decide what to do. As was just explained. Oh, is it good? Yeah. I'll just smile at you and then we'll be in good shape. The foundation or the genesis of this project as it applies to us relates to that letter up there that simply said that on June 1st, based on negotiations that had occurred early in the year, that the existing EMS agency would no longer be providing service to the town of Brattleboro. And for temporary measures, an alternate solution, as you have already described, was selected pending an analysis on our part to decide what would be the right model. So based on that, we have now selected 4 models, and that's what we're going to focus on for the purpose of the next 2 days. We are not complete with this study. We're going to start out, we're going to look at the possibility of reinstating the subsidy and contractual agreement with Rescue Inc. It's a viable solution. I think they've provided quality care over the years, and I think it's going to be a solution that you can consider. The second option we're going to look at is a contractual agreement with a private ambulance purely. What that is basically you can hire any private ambulance company and they will 100% provide service, but it is not any kind of public-private cooperation or any of that kind of thing. And these certainly exist across the country. The third option that we're going to give you is creating a fire-based EMS system for the city of Brattleboro, specific to the Brattleboro Fire Department. The fourth one is what is exactly occurring right now. We're going to look at this public-private partnership, a hybrid system, and see if that is a better model for you to pursue over the years to come. Now, before you flip, go back one just moment. It had to happen that way. Each one of these 4, we will measure them to 4 criteria. There will be a great deal of sterility. We don't have emotion in our business. So what we're going to do is give you very specific data, specific financials, and we will rate them to what you can show on the next thing. First thing we're going to do is see each one of those and how and the quality of service that they can provide to the community. The second one will look as your performance, time being the one most people are familiar with. They want to dial 911 and know that emergency services are going to arrive at their door. There are other factors that we will measure for performance, but we'll first look at the highest level of care. Then we'll look at performance for each one of those options. And then we're going to look at fiscal responsibility. It is the obligation of any public entity to respect for the fiscal responsibility. So we'll value the system. We'll look at options for cost recovery and see what benefits the taxpayer to the highest degree. Finally, we will look at sustainability. You certainly do not want to face these challenges repeatedly. You want a system that can, take you into the future and it is sustainable and it, for all the reasons you see above. So the criteria that you saw up there, we are probably 75%. We will complete that analysis over the next, well, we'll start with the next 2 days with the rest of the interviews. We have the opportunity, we will speak with Rescue Week tomorrow. We also speak with Golden Cross. I got to keep their name in straight. So we still have people that need to be involved in this presentation. And then we should, in about 30 days, be ready to deliver to you a technical draft. A technical draft is handed over to the city for clarification that we didn't make errors in the facts. It is not a judgment of the opinion or our, the recommendations that we make. We simply don't want to make recommendations based on false information. So you folks will take whatever time you need to say, yes, this is correct. The document is valid statistically. Then we will complete the final recommendations. And then I have the pleasure of coming to see you again to actually present to the group. This started on June 17th. And as I said, we'll probably be completed for a technical review in about 30 days, maybe even a little bit less is certainly our goal, which, as was mentioned earlier, we would certainly like to make a final presentation sometime in the middle of December if everything goes smoothly. There's the team. This is important to show you. One of the things and the benefits of hiring an organization such as ours is there are 7 people from across the country who are participating in this project. Only 2 of us are here today, but all of these people are very deep in this project. They all have special skills that acquaint themselves. For example, speaking of my own, I started out and did 17 years of single role public service EMS. It was non-fire. We were a county entity, and I covered 3,300 square miles in a community about 8,000 people. A lot of tourists and those kind of people did it. So I'm familiar with that model of having to provide EMS in that form. And then I evolved eventually until I was with a very large urban fire department. And everything that goes with that. So each one of these individuals has experience specific to Brattleboro. And so based on that, they were selected, and we will go through and we'll make the decision. But in the end, you will get the perspective of people from all across the country, which should at least be a tool for you to make the decisions that you have to make. A couple of things, and I just thought I'd show just a few things that we are working on right now. The first one is to evaluate service demand. That basically shows you the type of calls, and this is looking at the community of Brattleboro, the fires, the special assists they need, the EMS calls, the different categories. And the only one that you're really going to take note of is obviously the majority of services, emergency services, excluding law enforcement, is EMS. It is medical calls. So it is a significant portion of the services this community is requiring. EMS has been steady. We don't really count 2019 very well because COVID is an outlier. But you are very steady in your service demand requirements. We then analyzed the type of calls based on the day. I know when your calls are occurring. I know what day of the week. We even have it broken down even in more detail, and eventually I'll show you some of that. This becomes critical because it translates to the next slide. Back up one slide would be better. This translates to, we also know that the revenue that's going to be generated out of the system. Based on your volume, based on the time of day, it'll help us determine not only the valuation of the system, but what it's going to require or should require to provide emergency services for that model right there. It's just a generic, what we call layer map. We're going to do a lot of GIS analysis here and try to plan. This helps us determine where some of these units should be deployed. Is your system that is in place right now, is it, are your stations in the right place? Do you have the infrastructure to get ready to make a decision like this? And it would apply whether or not any of the 4 options that you folks choose. These are the type of calls and incidents that your folks are experiencing. 10% of your folks are having respiratory problems, a great deal of traumatic events, cardiac. What this translates to is there is a need for this community to have high quality EMS. This certainly puts a stamp on the requirement for this body to make some very, accurate decisions, because this is affecting a lot of people. So once we know the kind of incident that we're running, this also translates to what is it required to deliver those services. Performance will be one that there will be a great deal of information. I simply pulled the fire departments here in a minute. You can hold just a second. We measure three things, and each one of those criteria that I showed you at the beginning, the three models that we're going to look at, we're going to measure them and look at their response time. There's a little bit of debate as to what needs to get to you first. Do you just need a paramedic for a while? Then do you need transport? All of these are good things to consider, and we will address it. We have to look at staffing. It's an issue. I've heard you folks bring it up twice just with, within the town's challenges. Do each one of those options have the potential and the sustainability of staffing into the future? We're going to work on that. And then, of course, equipment. We are very equipment centric to provide the level of care. I am a paramedic, and it's expensive equipment. So we want to make sure that we have one of those four options has the capacity. Specific to time, there are three of them. We're going to look at all three of them. That first one up there called call processing, we want to see if your dispatch services are as optimal as they can be. And we'll look at that a little bit. The turnout time is important. That is where an individual, from the moment they receive the call, can get into the proper personal protective gear, equipment, whether it's just what we call body substance isolation to prevent the transmission, all the way to a firefighter that puts on bunker gear to protect them from a fire and gets out the door, because that clock is already running. Somebody has already called 911. Some time has been allocated to just the 911 call taker. But these are minutes that people are having troubles breathing. And then eventually it takes a certain amount of time to travel there. We will calculate each one of those. And in the next slide, I'll just show you your fire department. I have all entities that have been discussed. We have measured their performance based on the computer assisted or the CAD data that comes out of your dispatch center. So they all came from the same source. And I can tell you just from that picture, your fire department has a very quick response. We have broken out all the different aspects because we're going to look for a little efficiency that your fire department could think about, as well as when we're looking at the other entities and some of their efficiencies as they apply. So it shows you up there, if you go back for 1 second, if you just combine all the calls, but we'll focus on EMS, they're looking at somewhere around 6 minutes, 13 seconds, 6 minutes, 56 seconds to get to your door from the time that 911 is called. That is, to be perfectly honest, and I'm going to assume the other entities are somewhere in this close proximity. It means that you're getting service very quickly, and it rivals probably most urban systems. So this part is going very well. Projections. We have a remarkable statistician that comes out of Florida. We have a pretty good idea. We are accurate. I have an understanding of where your call volume as it relates to your population. The more people that come into Brattleboro, the more incidents that are going to occur, whether it's law enforcement, EMS, or other. So we will translate those numbers for a 5-year period, and that also helps us value the system to help you do the budget that's required or to decide whether or not financially the town can make a decision to do anything on their own or whether it is best served in another direction. Thank you, Judge. So that leads me to this thing. Although I have not given you any conclusive, and I assure you that is intentional, we need to finish the analysis, but we are I would say we're 75% in this. What I'd like to do is entertain any questions, mainly about the process.
Yep.
Because if you ask me for a conclusion, I'll do some really good two-step around it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, can you remind me of your name one more time?
Yeah, Rich.
Rich, thank you so much, Rich, for that presentation. So as is my want, I usually let the board get the first bite at the apple, and then I'm going to open it up to the public for a little bit of an opportunity to speak for them that are
Absolutely.
tonight. With the understanding that they're also going to have an opportunity to hear you tomorrow if they wish, the fire station. So board members, questions, comments about the presentation, keeping in mind that we're going to keep it more to process than any kind of conclusionary questions.
Sure.
Daniel.
Very simple question.
Yes,
This
sir.
was in the printed material, but I didn't see it in your presentation. Is there anything you want to say about it?
No, sir. Sometimes people want real details as to what I'm looking at for each entity or for each option. or each model.
Mhm.
I just, at some point, you folks have a very busy schedule, so I want you to see it, but it wasn't worth going line by line and telling them. It
Okay.
just basically shows that we have to look at many different items and metrics to make any kind of recommendation.
Okay,
And that lists off some of them.
okay, great.
Do you want to just for the audience?
I think that's a
Sure.
good idea. Why don't you
Yeah.
just read off what it,
The slide says overview, and then 4 bullets. Community survey is the first one. The second bullet says overview of Brattleboro Fire Department. Sub bullets, EMS system, training and continuing model, medical education, staffing and personnel, facilities and apparatus, financial analysis. And then the next bullet says service demand and response performance. We kind of talked about that a little bit. And the last one says recommendations and strategies that we're not talking about. System design, system valuation, cost recovery.
Thank you.
other board members? Tim?
Wait a minute, maybe I'm not ready.
Okay. I can fill in,
Oh,
yes,
I am ready.
good.
On the project goals, would you mind, or,
Yeah.
which was like the third slide. You said, make recommendations for the provision of emergency medical services for the town of Brattleboro based on, and then 4 criteria.
Yes, sir.
Did you or did you not mention a certain weighting assigned to these, or should we be looking at these as a
The next one's.
priority?
Now we're on track. There you go. It's an excellent question. And and I get asked this question a lot. This is going to come down to the opinion of this board. There are situations where there's certain service that your constituents simply demand. This is a level of service that they want, and they're willing to pay more for it. So it's the service that they prioritize. We don't walk in here and tell you how to, what to do with your constituents. You folks will decide if there's any weight to any of these. I'm going to compare those options to the rest of the national standards. I'll show you what other systems very similar to yours, and there are many of them similar to yours. I'll show you what they do, but in the end, you folks will decide what your constituents believe are the priorities there.
That's great. And just to be clear, not only are you not commenting on the weight of these four goals or criteria, but you're also in the numbering, you're not also
Not at all.
prioritizing.
It just happened to, I needed to put 4 of them up there.
Just want to
But
make
they are
sure
not
that,
prioritized.
thank you.
Jess?
I have one about this slide, just.
Go ahead.
Okay, wow.
I just keep it, so I understand how to measure performance as it, as time and fiscal responsibility. How will you measure service delivery and sustainability?
Another good question. Service delivery is we evaluate the potential of care and services provided by each one of those models. You're going to ask for a paramedic level care. We will explain in the presentation the various different types and how they apply. Some of it, just to be honest with you, there's some sibling rivalry. I will tell you that my department is better than the one next door to me simply because we think so. We also think the Denver Broncos could still go to the Super Bowl, which is obviously not going to happen. So some of service delivery is we look at the services provided. That is usually the most quantifiable. These are the procedures that can be performed. This is the services they can do when they arrive at your house. Compare them apples to apples across the table. As far as who is better, the likelihood is they're all good. Our basic assumption is that they can all provide level at a competent care, or the state of Vermont wouldn't allow them to be a paramedic. And the hospital would not support, a particular model, which we will also communicate with them and make sure that they've been heard in the receiving facility as part of this. So we try to basically be apples to apples and just the services they can provide.
Thank you.
Now, sustainability, this is important. Sustainability is actually transfers up one notch is to financially, can a model sustain itself over the coming years? You want to know that, again, we've had organizations where you know, the service provider simply ran out of money, they went out of business, and then suddenly this municipality has issues because they've got to do this. So one of them will be financial sustainability in the long term. The other sustainability has to do with the control that you folks, and this becomes a personal, this body wants to do is how much control do you want over your emergency services? You may say it is better over here as an independent, taking that. I think somebody said something about water and sewer. Does the city own that, or do they? Okay, so you chose to, that is under your control. That's another sustainability, is what does this board and what do your constituents, how much control do they want to have over their police, fire, and EMS? And it varies from community to community, absolutely. But we'll talk about that sustainability too, as to what your temperature is for how much of that you want.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Jess.
Yeah,
Oh, actually, I'm gonna pause you for 1 second. Liz, I can see you as a small window. So when you, I wanted just to say, and I see that your hand is up now, so I will get to you. I was pulling the slide down to make sure that we could see you, but I can still see you like this. So I'd like to keep the slideshow up because we're going to continue to refer to it. Go ahead, Jess.
back to that overview slide that Daniel mentioned. Which I don't think is in the actual.
Oh.
So I'm curious about the last bullet, recommendations and strategies. The sub bullets are system design, system valuation, and cost recovery. Can you tell us a little bit about what that will look like if you're gonna narrow in on one of the choices?
Absolutely.
How's that gonna?
Okay, the first one we will try to help you do is to give you several options for how to design this system. Regardless of who provides the services, what should the system look like? Should you have 2 ambulances here 24 hours a day? Should you have 4? Should you have paramedics on every ambulance, or do you have an ambulance that does basic life support and one that does advanced life support, a paramedic level? We will help you design based on that call volume you saw up there, based on the criticality that you saw up there. We'll help you, and the times, you know, during different times during the day. We're going to help you design a system and make recommendations that regardless of who you pick, this should be their deployment, is what we call it. So that is first.
So that would be information that we could either use to design our own system or put in an RFP for services from an outside provider?
I submit to you that all of it will be on the table for you to use with all 4 models. Absolutely. The next one.
System valuation.
System valuation. This is critical. We're going to determine with significant accuracy the value of this system. We will determine the dollars that are available here, if properly billed, properly, you know, recovered. And there is many models for that. There are many ways that organizations bill for services, especially to insurance companies. There's many philosophical decisions that you folks get to make as to what you do with those. If you were to do it internally, I'll give you an example. You can bill for services, but never bill constituents. That's very legal. You just can't pick and choose which individuals get a bill.
Yeah.
You can just choose that is the amount that we're going to get, whatever we get from insurance, and then we, you know, that's as far as we go. Other organizations may say, no, we want this amount, and then we're going to collect the rest from you, and even go as far as collections. Municipalities and most organizations, that isn't a strong philosophy. But we're going to find out what this system exactly has in it in potential. And then from that, we're going to slide a note across the table and tell you probably the appropriate amount that should be billed for specific events, regardless of which model you pick. It should be this amount to the insurance, and then you folks will have a philosophical discussion about what you want to do from there. But see, in our case, we're going to base that amount on the cost of running the system. We have a thing, it's called unit hour utilization. We calculate exactly what it costs to operate that ambulance for 1 hour, all right, with everything that goes with it, from the staffing of the paramedics to the equipment, to the gasoline in the engine, to the capital that you had to buy. It comes down to an hourly cost. We're going to slide that on the table and say that is what it should be. Your unit hour utilization cost should be right there. Then if you go to an organization and it's much higher than that, like if you're going to a private ambulance company, then you could simply tell them, folks, I'm sorry, that's too high. We're going to give you this. It gives you the ability to negotiate very well, regardless of which option you pick. Or you turn around and say, okay, well, that unit hour utilization, we're going to incur.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a decision you're going to make, and then you plug that in, and we're going to show you a gap because some of your unit hour utilization exists. The building's already there. There are some people already there. So therefore, we will have to show you, and we will show you the gap between those two to see what additional costs could come to the city. Then finally, cost recovery. This is also a very strong misconception. It does not have to be incurred by your constituents outside their insurance. So we will give you several models as to how to collect this properly and basically be fiscally responsible. And so how much money you're going to get? So what does it cost to run a business? How much money you're going to make? And then you folks have to make a decision.
Excellent.
That was a wonderful answer. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Liz.
Oh, thank you. I just want to thank you for this presentation, and I really look forward to hearing your recommendations. I have one small question on slide 4. You talk about the highest level of pre-hospital care, and that is what this is all about. And I wanted to make sure that you'll be talking to Dr. Swosey and Dr. Storn about their experience with this pre-hospital care in your examination.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I hope it's next week. Both of them are we're going to do it by Zoom. They were going to try to do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And there was a schedule conflict, but I promise they are going to be able to give us their input, and I will document that input in your report.
Well, thank you. I want to commend you on the thoroughness of this examination, and I look forward to your recommendations.
Thank you.
Any other board members? I'll speak for a moment. Yeah, this is what we need. We need a third party to come in with that doesn't have a motion to look at this objectively. The community needs this. The select board needs this. I'm grateful that we've contracted with you. I want to just know, have you had any problems getting any data or anything from the town up to this point? Is there anything that you're missing that we can help you get to help in making this evaluation and coming to a conclusion to present?
I'm not just saying this to you folks. You folks have been remarkable. What I have put your people through in gathering some of this data, everything from your dispatch center to the fire department to the hospital, it has been extraordinary. But the compliment I really want to give you is I do a variety of systems. Some of them are very large cities. Some of them are very small communities. The survey that we sent out, and I don't know if any of you got to see that survey, was solely for the purpose of the 7 people on the SMEs to get a chance to just get to know the community. Since they aren't here as fast, I wanted to be able to send out and say, here's what the people think. There's nothing definitive about it. It does not fall into the 4 categories that we've got to do empirically, and we have to use metrics to measure. But it was a wonderful thing, and you had 320 responses in a community. I did one in the South. Well, I even say it because it's not breaching anything. I did Davidson, North Carolina, and got 7. You folks did 300. So I want to emphasize that kind of information. It wasn't definitive. It was for these SMEs to get warmed up a little bit, get to know you. And then the rest of this process is where we get the details. So not only compliment the organizations that have helped us get this information, but the community was fantastic. There was some concern in some of those that, you didn't ask enough questions. There were other options we wanted to read. And I got most of those answers in the comments, and it goes on for pages. It really is. It's fantastic. And my people, they go through all of that to get a feel for it. So I think you accomplished a lot. It's credit to the community. But in the end, the decisions are going to be based on what you saw in those criteria. That's how we come to conclusions. We just needed to get to know you a little bit. So if there was any concern, I just wanted to point that out, that was the purpose of it. It does not drive decisions. Now, I'm going to hand over that survey to you folks. It's yours. maybe it influences you to pick between the models that we give you. That's the feelings of your community. Those are, you know, the opinions. That may have some bearing on you. It does not on us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So, in the end, you will also, it'll be an appendix. I just hand it to you and let you look at it.
Excellent. In that case, I'm gonna open up to the community now. And don't see any hands currently on Zoom, so look to the room. I saw Kate's hand first, so. No, well, they were late.
Hi, I'm Kate O'Connor from Brattleboro. And you're gonna think I'm like nuts for saying this, but Chief Howard can tell you why he's not gonna be surprised, and you won't be surprised that I'm saying this either. If this is a presentation you're gonna give tomorrow evening, I would really suggest that you take the letter from Rescue out of your presentation. It is not an adequate or accurate portrayal of why we are where we are right now. It's blaming Rescue. The reason we are here now is because of a decision that the Brattleboro Selectboard made. So it's this letter's a lightning rod. And
Yeah,
I think,
I actually would know that. I think it would be a
Yeah.
good idea to, yeah, and
yeah,
and I would say, Kate, we didn't see this presentation before, but it just came up, you know, so I would echo fully. I think
Okay.
based on what you're I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
go ahead.
No, you're giving, I think probably you should explain to the Triton people so they don't think that I'm just like one crazy person saying this. There's like there's a big background to why we are where we are. And there's a lot of people in this community that are upset. And I don't know if that's coming out with the in the survey. But speaking of the survey, there are a lot of us who are concerned about the survey because you could have 300 people from Hawaii answering it. So there's a lot of concern on how what's in the survey, how the results were collected, and who is actually answering it. And now you've explained that it's not going to have any bearing on what you do. And last week, they pretty much said it's not going to have any bearing on what the decision the select board makes. So I just had to say that, but I think the letter is important to take out. And I think the survey, I would actually urge you folks probably not to use the survey as your determination based on it could be 100 people from Hawaii, but maybe you can, I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up because it was concern of the survey last meeting, and the select board asked us to ask you about it because it's your survey.
Fair enough. As far as the letter goes, the only thing, we don't get involved in what you call the history or the background. That's not my job. Our job is to have a little bit of sterility to this and be unbiased. The only part of the letter that matters to me at all is it has a date on it as of June 30th. Other than that, so it doesn't serve any purpose. We can take it out. It doesn't serve any purpose. It was the genesis of how this got started from our perspective, but no, it doesn't, it's gone. In answer to about the survey, I will also tell you that they weren't from Hawaii. At least if they were very vested people in this community. The comments are fantastic. They're very well written. Most people articulated, but the thing that I found unusual is you folks are all over the spectrum of how you feel about it. I was trying to do a little bit of statistical. I went back to graduate school and did some of that. And I was surprised that there isn't a consensus among the community as to what should be the model. So that is why you have an organization like ours come, is we will take that emotion out. I'll simply show you the finance, the performance, the options, and then let you folks convey to these folks, and then a decision can be made. But it was actually well-written stuff. I'll probably give you because it's a public document, so that means you guys can have it too. There's good comments in there. And like I said, with the exception of a very rare, I think there was 2, they're very constructive, positive, and they just want the right service in your community. So I don't think people in Hawaii care enough to write like that. I really don't. The people of Brattleboro, they cared enough to write. So
I would just like to correct one statement, Kate. there were a couple of board members who spoke individually as to sort of their position on, their position on the survey. The board did not speak generally, fully on. No, don't apologize. I just wanted to make it clear. Okay, now, I'll look to Zoom and I see Franz Reichsman, Dr. Reichsman, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Franz Reichsman, lived here in Brattleboro, District 2. Very interesting presentation, as others have said. My question is, where in the analysis will issues of backup and mutual aid be represented? And maybe a few words about what your thinking is about the role of mutual aid in EMS services, and what measures you can use, and what the framework is that you use to look at that.
Excellent question. And I'm not just saying that, it really is an excellent question. We met with all the surrounding chiefs today. It was a huge crowd of people, and each one of them conveyed their capacity to support the community, and where they had reached their limits, and, getting another ambulance down here is not going to work. Some of them have the capacity. We will put all that under an entire section that is for just mutual aid. The other thing that we've got to calculate this is what's called an effective response force. We also want to see what you would call blue sky, added value. On occasion, if you have a system that is fire-based, those personnel can help fight the fire. There is sometimes benefit to that, not only in this community, but in other communities. So we'll look at many different angles to see if what it has. I can't tell you, sir, and he disappeared on me, but I think he's still there. Your neighbors are getting close to capacity. Their ability to keep sending units to Brattleboro is going to become a challenge. But what caught me off guard is what they're really nervous about is they need Brattleboro to go help them, whatever system is here. So it's a balance. You get along with your neighbors well. We have to factor that in. That gets to, how do you staff those units? Is it got to be two? You could put one ambulance here from whatever system and say that we're just going to let the neighboring agencies take care of us. They can't. So we have to design a little bit of a system that has autonomy, at least most of the time. Tragedies notwithstanding, we can't do anything about that, but the normal day-to-day has to be autonomous to Brattleboro, and we will design it according. And there will be an entire section just about mutual aid.
Excellent. I'll look to the room. There's a, nope. Okay, so I'll look to, I think the next one is Mr. Ozer, Bob. Come on up.
And I think I'm there.
Yes.
It's Bob Ozer, and I'm District 2, or sometimes now called, District 3, I'm sorry. So 7, 8, 9, now District 9 for Windham County. So very good, thank you. I think that the whole idea of using metrics would be a great idea. There is sort of a background to this, though, and I think Kate pointed it out with respect to that March 25th letter. And I would also vote to take that out. But I think that it's a tough way to do this. Like, you've got the metrics on the one hand, but then you've got a whole history and a recent history, which is somewhat problematic. So this is feasibility. So to assess the feasibility of one of these four options. And how we got here is that there was a representative town meeting, and there was a vote of 100 members of that assembly to vote on a budget. And there was a line item for $25,000 for a feasibility study for the fire department. And the way that was explained in the annual report of 2021-22 at that March 19th meeting was that it was for a strategic plan to help with community expectations, concerns, positive feedback, help identifying critical issues, service gaps, as well as give guiding values and principles on how we move forward. And that's a direct quote from the annual report. So that's what the representatives voted on when they looked for money for a strategic plan. There was no mention of the fire EMS model at that time. It was not on the table. It was not under consideration. However, there were some things going on in the background that resulted in that March 25th letter. So to be informed about that, maybe not as part of the report, but to be informed about it is, I think, inescapable. There are also some immediate concerns that I think need to be outlined. And I want to thank the board for earlier explaining that the monthly report on EMS activities was unfortunately not available at the present time. Although I hope that it's available to you and you can use that in your work. The fire department's overtime expenses, we talked about a little bit earlier on in this meeting. And in August, they were at 27% of budget. In September, they were at 69% of budget. And they're now reported to be at 128% of budget. The numbers themselves may not be that concerning. We talked about COVID. And in the police department, the overtime budget is 41% of budget. 128 is a lot different than 41. Save that thought. There also continues to be staff turnover. 4 resignations were listed as going to other employment and 1 leaving the state. So taking the overtime and the staff churn is a concern for what's happening within the department relative to taking on these new activities. In a select board meeting, maybe 1 meeting ago or 2 meetings ago, we talked about how to account for department expenses associated with EMS. And I think, and you may want to comment on this, there may be an answer here that's easy, and it is the CMS cost data reporting. So all expenses across the board within the town that are associated, that all expenses across the board can be allocated to EMS depending upon what those how many of those are medical calls. So there's an allocation system for expenses. The community survey has been an issue. And it's good that you're looking at it. It's good that that will be a public record. There is a concern that it was hastily prepared. It's really unclear, both from the board perspective and from the study's perspective, what kind of weight will be given to the community expectations and concerns that may be expressed in that survey. And remember, that's where this whole discussion started, with a strategic plan. But the issues with the survey, there was a period of time on October the 9th when the survey was inaccessible. And we didn't get a clear explanation of what happened. There was a glitch of some sort that made it inaccessible. So that glitch may have had a chilling effect on participation. Even though 320 people responded, were there other responses that you did not get? Question 1 in the survey is the one that deals with residents, and we talked about Hawaii. I don't necessarily think that there are people from Hawaii there, but we have 23 communities in Windham County and several communities close by in New Hampshire. And we don't know where those people are from, because the way that question was phrased would not give us that information. So the demographics for that question was lacking. Question 2 was also an issue because it said, let me just finish with question 2 and I'll finish right there.
Okay. perfect.
Question 2 asks to check all that apply. And several people have come to me and said, it only allowed one answer. So those questions with respect to the survey, I think are still out there. I thank you very much for your presentation, and I thank you for your emphasis on metrics and for the fact that there are 4 options on the table.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. So there's quite a few different things sort of to speak to. If I can sort of, I might hand it over to you at first if you want to. The one thing I wanted to just correct on Bob's early analysis was just, Bob, the EMS update, it's not unavailable. It's that we, on the agenda setting committee, decided to put it on for November 1st instead of for this meeting, so that we gave these two other time sensitive issues as much time as possible. One of the things that I've reflected on as chair of this board is that sometimes I pack the agenda a little too full. And so I am trying to get better at that. And then, yeah, I mean, I looked at our representatives from AP Triton, if you want to speak to the community survey. There wasn't an issue on the 9th. I'm not sure if there's an explanation. I think it was corrected. You can sort of speak to how long the survey is going to be open for, and that if there's a way to correct question 2, if there is something wrong with how many ways you can answer it or the number.
Again, to emphasize, the survey was for us.
Yeah.
And we have enough information just to get an idea of the temperature of the community. That was what this is for. So it was not a scientific study. It was not meant. We wanted a general idea of the respondents, where they're from, in the city, out of the city, business owner, other. I understand this. It wasn't meant for any purpose. We'll give that to you if it serves you purpose. But I emphasize again, that isn't how we come to any decisions or conclusions. It'll be in there if you guys want to use it. As far as it went down on the 9th, which I think was a Saturday, we used SurveyMonkey, and I don't know what happened to SurveyMonkey. We then called, they turned on, and it was on again. So there may have been a day. I don't think it, probably changed the outcome, because like I said, we got a great outcome. We have a very good understanding that it is a polarized issue. And that was about what we were really looking for. And then some of the results, like I said, they'll be in the appendix if they serve you a purpose. It is on until the 31st. And you're more than welcome. And we'll keep grabbing at it to see if there's something new that comes up. But I think that we're going to get much more valid information from the people tomorrow, who actually come talk to us and say, this is what we're worried about, and we cover it. So I think that's a survey. It just, like I said, it's not a scientific tool. I don't live in Brattleboro. We needed to know a little bit about you and the issues that are here. And that is the purpose of that. It does not drive anything else. It's not done hasty. It's done he's got a good point. Having made scientific surveys, they can get a great deal of detail. I was stunned that you filled them out at all. And 300 of you, I have a pretty good idea. So it accomplished absolutely the goal it needed to accomplish. But again, I would be more than happy to leave it on till Halloween. But I think that we're getting more information from talking to the people directly now. And they're not in Hawaii.
Since we're on the
Tim.
subject.
Yeah.
Could I just ask, is there a way to see the questions, not the answers, but just the questions without taking the survey? I personally didn't want to take the survey so that, I mean, I know you got 300, so I don't think I would throw anything off, but I don't want to take a survey that, might be part of our consideration. So can I just have a list of the questions?
I'm going to give you the whole thing in the appendix.
No, I just mean like earlier rather than later, before it's over.
And he is also right. We try to write it in a very.
You can see them all?
language
Okay, that's fine.
To capture people that'll, at least take a few minutes. I was just stunned at your folks. So it's intentionally written the way it is. It wasn't a hasty anything.
Okay.
We try to make this as fast as possible, so it takes them 3 minutes to answer it. Your folks did not. Your folks wrote me great narrative on those other questions, and some of that may be useful to you. we'll wait and see.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, yes.
My name is Beth Kendall, and I think I'm in District 3. It was just changed this year. I can't tell you. But two quick questions. Number one, I came in late. I'm sorry, I was in a class. But how long is your examination going on?
It's been going on for 2 months.
Now, how long will it go on?
I think we'll finish tomorrow with the interviews of everybody that we can speak with. And I think it'll be another 30 days after that to put it all together and make sure. And then, as I told these folks, there's a great deal of information in that document that I need validated. Make sure we didn't make a mistake, which, by the way, folks, we will. And you will fix it. And after we have that information, then we can draw the conclusions and help prioritize things and give you, some ideas. So I'm hoping 30 days to hand you a technical review. The city can take as long as they want to review that. I would encourage the city to do it very quickly, because if I can get that finalized, I would like to come see you in the earlier middle part of December and at least lay it on the table and say, now you folks have a very informed decision to make. And then I can let you be.
Do you suspect, this is kind of a demographic question, I guess you call it demographic, that if things change, and I know you can't study this for years, I appreciate what you're saying, but if things change, because we're losing a lot of housing money in the state, I mean, not in the country, but I only care about this region right now. So will an increase in homelessness potentially change any of your information? And it's just a concern I have. It's not, it may be nothing.
Can you
but
just repeat the question? I just didn't catch it.
Well, with VRAP going and with the other housing money decreasing, there probably will be an increase in homelessness, one would imagine. And I just don't know how that affects some of your numbers, your information. I don't know if you can project and figure it in, but we don't really know. I mean, I'm on the board of the homeless of Groundworks. I don't want there to be more homeless people, but there more than likely will be. So yeah, it was just, and that won't be until like the middle of the winter before we see what happens with that. So it was just a thought.
And I probably can't speak intelligently to it because I don't have anything to measure.
Yeah, I know.
It could happen. I can tell you that I go to communities where it's a significant problem, and it's a significant problem because that's drawing your services. That requires more mutual aid, as the physician was mentioning. It draws, you're right. It impacts your community, which probably means that the models that we give you will probably have to be refined as they grow. That's part of sustainability.
Thank you.
And Daniel,
I just want to speak to it because it's like to do with my work.
Oh, yeah?
So, yes, there's a continuum of housing, right? And folks that have been getting rental assistance for, say, the last 18 months, who are no longer receiving it or are kind of like winding down receiving it, there's a lot between that and homelessness, it's not a kind of like people are going to be immediately homeless. And so, the organization that I work for has done this work for many years, will continue to do it. And whilst, I agree that there are many concerning trends in housing, it's hard for me to say that like we would see a spike in homelessness. I think that the transitional housing program that's being, run through the state and motels, that's going to shake out in some interesting ways. But
I hope you're right, Daniel. I'm with you. I'm with you. Totally know I'm with you.
I'm not going to try and predict the future, but I think that I don't want to kind of present VRAP ending equals homelessness because there's way more between there and there.
Right. I mean, there are major hotel programs. We have people housed in.
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm saying you're housed, you stop receiving rental assistance. That does not then equal homeless.
Right. And I think I wasn't, I wasn't simply referring to VRAP. I was referring to the other money also, and the hotel money and the programs that people are in. I wasn't being that specific, but there is a possibility that there'll be more people without housing. I hope not. I'm with you. I hope.
Well, Groundworks is doing good work with HealthWorks, getting people connected with
health insurance and that kind of thing, so.
No, believe me, we're all rooting for that. I'm not announcing an increase in homelessness, but just was curious how one might look at this.
Well, I think it speaks to sustainability, as you were saying, right? Like,
You have to
we
have
have,
a program that can adapt.
Yeah.
Deal with such changes when they occur, because they're going to occur. We might even have this thing called COVID again. These changes do occur and the system has to be able to adapt to that. That's sustainability.
Have the flexibility. Yeah. Okay, looks like we got one more hand and that, man, I'm trying. Sandy? Sandy? All right, Sandy, join us. You want to just tell us, who you are and where you're from?
don't say Hawaii.
Okay, I am Sandy from Brattleboro. I do not know what district I'm in.
No worries.
You don't need to.
Okay. So I have two questions.
Yep.
One is this report you're going to generate kind of lean one way or another to say this would appear to be the best way to go? Or are you just going to give the 4 options and it will be up to the select board to discuss it and decide?
And let's hear the second question and then we'll take them both.
Well, the second question is, if he is going to give us, point A is the best way to go, but these are all your options. Are you, the select board, going to go with point A, or are you just going to go with what we're doing now because that's the way you've been pushing since the beginning?
Both great questions, Sandy. Thank you. Let's have AP Triton speak to question 1, and then I'll take on / I'll have the board take on 2.
Excellent. I don't know who to look at. Can she see me?
She didn't turn her camera on.
That's perfect.
And sorry,
If you were on a camera somewhere, he
Yeah.
can see you.
yeah.
Ma'am, it's an excellent question. This particular type of report that we do, I would say it's about 99%. We just provide the options, pros and cons. So in the end, prioritization has to occur in the group that sits out here and this body, governing body. So what we do is try to give them an informed. So for the most part, it is very rare in here that we say, this is the best system for you, because to be perfectly honest, the priority of those 4 things can get moved in different directions. That's not for us to determine. That is your community that determines that. So this will be 99%. There are sometimes things that we recommend. You must build a system that has these factors in it. You must build a system that can do this, There are those kind of things that we do based on our experience across the country. But for the most part, I will say that I'll stand up and give you the pros and cons and have a great deal of neutrality to it and let you folks prioritize. So does that answer your question about, are we going to pick one?
You want to unmute Sandy again, just to see?
Yes, that does answer my question.
Okay. Yeah, and so I think then that kind of answers question 2. There's not going to really be one specific one that is going to be represented as the one to choose. So the board is going to in a very public and well-attended, probably many meetings and discussions, look at all of the data that's provided to us and ensure that we're moving in the right direction for this community. And I think with that, with no more hands, we've moved a little bit past the time where we usually try to take a break at 8, which I've been informed is not for anyone in particular, but just generally we take a break at 8.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, if they're bored, if you don't have it, Jess,
I
yes.
just had one more that I was gonna ask and I totally forgot to. It's about in designing the system, recommendations for the system. I just wanted to check, when you're making recommendations, are you gonna consider how it's stacked, how the shifts work? Oh, I like that you raised your eyebrows in a knowing way. So yes.
Yes, we have to, that gets back to those early, and I just had to pick a couple to show you to prove that we're doing our job.
Yeah.
The criticality of those will drive the kind of services that have to show up to your door. Those services then dictate the level of training and expertise that has to show up at your door. So yes, we will identify some systems during the middle of the day, you can have a different level for a certain type of call volume. And others, you need advanced life support paramedic every time that they go out. So, yes, we will tailor it to you.
And more specifically, thinking about sustainability of even current staff. And understanding what their capacity is for time commitment and length of shifts and all of that. Is that?
And we don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but there are some very specific laws that apply to this. We have what's called FLSA, as your attorney is very well aware of. Only a firefighter can fall under that, and there are criteria that go on for 2 pages that define if they are exempt from overtime under the provisions of FLSA. So systems we have to design to say, okay, we can have single role paramedics that are not firefighters. They have to get paid overtime, and we design the system to make sure that's feasible. Or over here, if they can serve a dual role, they can fall under FLSA, and maybe that saves money. It doesn't always, so don't jump to any conclusions there. So you're right, I have to come up with various deployment models, and then you guys pick from that. But what it'll ultimately do is whatever deployment model we pick, does it provide the service necessary to get them from home to that facility with the highest probability of improved care?
Daniel had a quick question, I think.
It's a sort of wrap-up question. So for folks that have watched your presentation on Zoom or in the room tonight, should they still come out to the fire station tomorrow night? Are they going to hear the presentation in the same way again? What can people expect?
To be perfectly honest, they're going to see a great deal the same.
Yeah.
But it's an opportunity for them to be heard.
Yeah.
Most of what I'm going to do is, yes, I can show a couple of the pictures and get through it in the 5 or 10 minutes. What I really want is what one of the individuals talked about with the survey. Now I need to hear it.
Yeah.
I need them to stand up and say, I have issues with this, and I can hear them say it. And maybe we didn't capture it in a survey, and then we can address it. So, and answer your question, yes, they're going to see, with the exception of a letter at the beginning is gone, with the, a couple of these things we will certainly accommodate, but they're going to see very much because I intend to talk for just a couple of minutes and then ask.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any other board member discussions?
No, you wanted to take a break, right?
I wanted to
gonna-
actually, I'm
are we
gonna end
gonna-
this agenda item.
Oh, you are?
Yes,
Okay.
because we don't have any more hands in.
No, I guess I'm okay, because most of what's going through my brain is sort of stuff I have to sort of percolate with a little bit. So, I don't know if I could really come up with a cogent extra question.
Liz?
I'm all set, thank you.
All right, Rich, thank you again so much.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. And Tom, thank you as well.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break and we'll reconvene, let's say at 8:25. Thank you very much. So it's 8:28. We're going to reconvene the Brattleboro Selectboard meeting a couple minutes behind. So we're going to move now, board, to new business agenda item 9D, which is the Charter Review Commission. And I'm going to actually start this bad boy off with a little acknowledgement. This is a every 15 years, the town of Brattleboro, per our charter, needs to convene a Charter Review Commission to comply with our charter requirement that the charter is looked at, suggestions are made, and potentially changes are made to the charter. And it is quite an honor to be on the select board that so happens to be on that 15-year mark where that commission needs to be convened. So we need to do it by the end of December, by the end of 2022. So this is kind of our first time having it brought before the board in a real official way. So I've asked Attorney Fisher to be here tonight, and I'm actually gonna turn it over to him now to give us kind of a little bit of an overview of what this is, what the process will look like, both in the sense of what's being asked of us tonight, and then also what kind of is the Charter Review Commission or committee, and what are they charged with doing? So Attorney Fisher.
Thank you. And when you say we have to do this by the end of 2022, it's not, it's just the appointing of the
thank you.
charter revision. The Charter Revision Commission doesn't need to have all of its recommendations.
I appreciate
Done
that.
by that
clarification.
would be quite miraculous
Yes.
if that were to occur. But Ian is correct that at least every 15 years, the select board shall appoint from among the voters of the town, a charter revision commission to review the language of the charter, the rights, the powers, the duties, responsibilities that are in the charter. And the Charter Review Commission then makes proposed amendments, and it may make proposals that redraft the charter in whole or in part. So you really have a large range of what can happen, and I'll get into that in a minute. And then by the end of the Charter Review Commissions or committees tenure, the committee will vote and make recommendations, and those changes are then voted upon at a special representative town meeting, which is preceded by a public hearing where everyone can come. That's got to be at least 60 days prior to that special representative town meeting. And then usually, though it doesn't have to be, the various recommendations are done either by article or by topic, so that they're voted upon independently. And that way, there are also the rights of referendum. So if there is a petition to take it to the voters at large, past representative town meeting, that is a possibility at the time when it's voted upon. But that's perhaps, quite a ways down the road. And then just to fill out how it's adopted is after the town adopts various changes or amendments, then any new amendments go to the Vermont legislature to be passed ultimately by the Vermont legislature, as the charter is an actual statute of the state of Vermont. So it has to go through that very final process of being approved by the Vermont state legislature.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when you look at our charter, there are 4 ways to amend the charter. One is by a statutory provisions, which are set forth in Title 17. The second is the select board on its own motion can make recommendations, and then that goes directly to Australian ballot of the voters of the town. The third is by town meeting resolution, and we've done that from time to time on various specific amendments that have come through. Some of the ones with the town clerk and voting and timelines were done by resolution. And then the fourth is by recommendation of the Charter Review Committee. So for purposes of this committee, we would follow that fourth avenue of how the charter gets amended. Having been through this a couple times before with prior charter review committees, there's a very wide range of what is considered. It can be, if people like the way the charter is and there are various things that need to be updated. For instance, things like the reference to the town school district. There's a lot of housekeeping matters that need to be changed. It can be very specific that way, or it can be very, very broad and say, should we even have representative town meeting? Should we have a different form of government? Should we have a town manager form of government? So you're really looking at the broad aspects of how the town of Brattleboro chooses to govern itself. And so in the past, various charter review committees have looked at the various options of how to govern: mayoral systems, town manager systems, direct democracy, and have learned about those and discussed those, and have also gotten right down to very specific parts of the charter with regard to initiatives and the public, how does the public get something voted upon? What matters should be matters for appointment by the board? Should there be things where the town of Brattleboro should do things differently than this regular state statute. So all of that gets looked at. When there are legal questions, there's usually a list, and I try to do the research and provide answers. But ultimately, the Charter Review Commission is going to be making recommendations that then would go before a special representative town meeting. It's helpful to have an odd number on your committee. It's the select board that appoints. You probably want to reach some sweet spot, and I'll let you figure out what that is, between having too few people and too many people in terms of making it cumbersome to make decisions and get things done. But those are the types of things that can be discussed by the board. So I'm happy to answer other questions, but suffice it to say, it's an opportunity that comes up every 15 years, and you really have a wide gambit of what can be the recommendation.
And thank you so much, Bob. So that's a great transition to what's actually before the board this evening, which is a memo prepared by interim town manager Moreland as to some recommendations for the board's consideration as to kind of what we could consider to answer some of those questions. And I'm going to let Patrick speak to that briefly.
Sure. Thank you, Ian. So the memo before you is actually, you could consider these notes to a conversation that Bob and I had perhaps a month ago. And it's just a series of recommendations, things we think will be helpful, things we think the board should consider in getting a charter revision commission going. And the first one Bob just touched on, which is to choose an odd number of appointees, probably 5, 7, or 9. It's up to you. You know, fewer than 5 is going to be putting a lot of authority in very small and very few hands. Getting beyond 9 is getting unimaginably unmanageable. So 5, 7, or 9 is probably your sweet spot. We would recommend that the select board offer the select board meeting room for charter revision commission meetings to occur. And that's for a couple of reasons. The select board meeting room is in an accessible building. It's large, there's decent capacity. The public is accustomed to attending public meetings here, and it is fully wired for BCTV, which raises a second recommendation, which is we think it probably makes sense to have the meetings covered by BCTV. I've had a conversation with Core Trowbridge about what that might entail. We think for the sum of maybe $2,000 annually, we could cover Charter Revision Commission meetings on BCTV, and we think that is money well spent. We would suggest that the board expect plenty of staff support. Bob is going to be spending probably quite a bit of time with the Charter Revision Commission. The town manager will likely stop by from time to time, but we'd also recommend providing administrative support so that members of the Charter Revision Commission are not burdened with having to prepare minutes, right? They could be done by administrative staff. So ultimately, what we would recommend is that you give staff some guidance. We're thinking that we should publicly announce as loudly and in as many ways as possible the coming formation of a Charter Revision Commission, and that the board solicit letters of interest from members of the voters, and that we set a clear date for when those letters should be received by. Initially, we were thinking November 4th. I think that's a decent date that provides about 2.5 weeks for folks to get letters of interest in. If you wanted to go till the 11th, that certainly wouldn't hurt. That would give about 3.5 weeks for folks to get their letters in. But all of this timing is designed to allow for the potential that the board may want to conduct interviews, right? You could get numerous letters. You may want to have some special meetings to do interviews. But we'd like to, if at all possible, wrap this up for the first meeting in December, where the board would then select members of the commission. And I think our target should be the first meeting, just because if something delays us, we've always got a second meeting or something like that. And we still get it done within the time before the year expires.
Excellent. So, board, we got some things to think about. I would open it up for just some discussion as to, I think I'd kind of like to just kind of go through them all together. Or do you want to just go down the list? I'm kind of open to.
I'm just seeing
Let's
all
go
of
down the
Jessica's
list.
questions.
Let's go down the list.
Let's go down the list. So, if it feels good with the board, why don't we talk about, the number of, people? I've got a 7, that doesn't actually get into the record there, Tim. 7, there you go.
Is my sweet spot, but
Jess, you like 7?
What about 11?
Daniel thinks 11. Why do you like 11?
I just wanted to put a number out that wasn't one of these 3 options.
Okay.
And,
you being
and
flippant?
see whether the board has any interest in that, and it seems like they don't. I
Liz,
just want to check.
Liz is also making a 7 on the screen.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Okay.
I think
Hearing a lot of support for 7. I retract my offer of 11 and
you back 7.
back on team 7.
Back
I
on
think.
team 7.
Okay.
I think that 7.
What about 9? I don't know.
I
Like, I
think we
feel
should
like
remember that these are public meetings, that anyone can participate in the conversation in the public input process, and depending on how they're facilitated in the topics addressed. So I think that, 7 is a manageable and yet larger than 5 number to
yeah.
So
be making this final decision.
how many are on the DRB?
I don't know.
I think it's 7 for Brattleboro.
I think so too.
I think it's more than 5. It's 7.
With alternates.
Yeah, so I was on the DRB for a while with 7, and that felt, I'm just bringing it up because it's like the one. And it felt like it would be hard to manage a conversation if there had been more. Like you actually do, even at 7, run into some people kind of getting pushed to the side a little if it's not managed well. Maya and James both did a great job when I was on the DRB managing it. But yeah, I think one thing that I think about with 7 is that in our interview process, we should ensure to emphasize the importance of attendance for the charter review, and that, this is a serious undertaking that would require some real time commitment for an applicant, because I would hate to see it drop far below 7.
Exactly. That's
And
kind of
so-
why I was.
And for
erring on
9,
that.
9 maybe builds in the above the little bit of room there, but Tim?
well, speaking to something you just said, how does this get envisioned for how many times would they meet? Because it's hard to recruit.
I believe that would be a decision made by the committee.
Okay, because it also, like, I was kind of wondering on the BCTV situation, like, did you throw out a range? Because how would they have?
So I think if you're concerned about the cost of BCTV,
Well, I was just curious if you had thrown out to core, for instance, a number of meetings.
so, well, that's, the price here is for monthly meetings. If the commission wished to meet twice a month, double the cost.
Bob, your experience with 2 past charter review, so you've been in the town for 30 years?
I have a box with the minutes, so I could double check this, but I think they met monthly. There were times when, as things sped up, they may have met more than once a month. but
Okay.
It was not absolutely rigid, and of course, being a public committee, they can have their standing monthly, and if they needed an extra meeting, could pull that in.
Good to know, because when you're trying to sell somebody to apply, they need to know
Yeah,
kind of commitment.
There's also, and I'm sorry to
no,
come in again, but there's also the need to, at least last time, to research different topics that were brought up at each meeting. And it might be that 1 or 2 people on the committee were going to look into, well, how does Greenfield do it? Or how does a mayor system work? What's a strong mayor? What's those types of things. So you've got to leave time for those items to be researched or, to get the education on, so that everybody on the committee can make an informed decision.
Yeah, so I think that would be something we would want to ensure to mention during the interviews, that the committee would be the one setting the duration or when they may meet, but that a realistic expectation would be at least once a month, and that it could, change, and there may be work outside of the committee meetings. Liz, did you have your hand up before?
No, I'm set with how you're proceeding. Thank you, Ian.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so for the select board, we operate right at 5, and it really gets hard when you drop below 5. And the reason that it works at 5 is because we all understand the importance of attendance and that we don't miss meetings. And so I think if we were just to ensure that whoever we appointed to the committee really understood the importance of this, like you just heard Bob speak to, like, what's the mayoral system of government look like? They could be considering that kind of question when it comes to the town of Brattleboro. It's a huge discussion so it is very serious. And it's not just because I'm like nerdy about it. It is a serious thing. So yeah, I think if we emphasize it, 7's good.
And just building on that, so like they'll make recommendations, which then a special town meeting will vote on.
Of course.
Right? So it's not like the recommendations that they make are then shulled off to the legislature, where they will, I'm sure, do a very rigorous process.
And on the other end of that, I'd like to point out that it's something, we're picking the people for this body, right? But then we wind them up and then they just go.
Well,
we do not step in and interfere with the process after that, correct?
That's correct. Of course, you have the ability to go to public meetings, so if you want to participate,
Oh, of course.
obviously.
No, I just want to
and
point that
go,
out for people watching.
Right. I will say, and I don't want to complicate this, there was one time when the Charter Review Commission said, when they got to the end, and it wasn't, in my recollection, all that controversial, they had various changes. Instead of going through the process of a special representative town meeting, and they said, how about you just take what we're recommending and make it the select board's recommendation for a charter revision, and then have it go right to the people, not bypass representative town meeting to a vote of the voters, called the voters at large.
Huh.
That was atypical, but
Yeah.
that was an instance though, where the select board, at the request of the Charter Review Commission, did get involved at the end, but that's not the way that it is stated in the charter as to how that's to proceed.
Wow, which one was that?
Did they change the charter?
That was
I was gonna say,
wow,
strikes me that Charter Revision Commission should have recommended the abolition of town meeting, seeing as it sounds like they weren't that interested in it.
Or just a modification of how the charter review.
might have been a fact.
Vote of the public, of the town, and not through RTM.
So that was atypical, and I'm not recommending it go that, but to answer your question, Tim, about the select board being involved, you're really not involved. You're appointing this committee, revision committee, and the committee will make its recommendations. And then there is a public hearing for 60 days preceding a special representative town meeting. This is not something you want to couple, and I think it says special specifically in the charter, so that you don't try to put this onto an annual representative town meeting where, boy, it would go.
We would have a.
Just add or what you already have.
I was
a very busy day. Of town meeting.
I was an RTM member when we did a special meeting to vote.
For the last one.
For the last one, yeah. Everybody was annoyed at the extra meeting, of course.
Yeah, Daniel kind of, no, Jess, go ahead.
I whispered to him that I had a question.
We can pull ourselves back to these points so we can.
You don't want to just kind of talk.
I just don't.
Okay, well, this is also part of the discussion though, but I appreciate that.
Well, can I just ask my very direct question because it kind of builds on what Bob was saying? Who may be on the committee? It says in the charter, voters. We are voters.
No, the select board can never be on a committee where we appoint the people.
It says that elsewhere in the charter.
Yes, that says it.
Why would you want?
I don't want to be. I just want to clarify.
You get this, Chris, that Daniel.
No, I
wants
do
to-
not want
wants
to
us
be.
to appoint him, but the charter, yeah.
I will be
Above
making a
the
very
fold.
robust application.
Is there any other restrictions besides the select board?
Not that are in the charter that I see. I mean, and of course, the incompatible offices that are found in Title 17 don't really apply because regular state statute doesn't have the charter like Brattleboro has, so.
Yeah.
I think in general, it's just has to be among your voters in town.
Am I right? It can't be the select board can't be.
Yeah, I'm looking at.
That's right,
Okay.
and that would be
That's what I
it
thought.
doesn't specifically say that in subsection H here,
It's-
but you don't want to be appointing yourself to that committee.
I don't even want to talk about it. Okay, so, Tim,
In the event, it sounds like we had sort of consensus on 7,
I think so.
but in the event that we have particularly amount of trouble, would we as a board be comfortable dropping to 5 with 5 good people?
No,
Because, no,
I would not be. But
Okay.
because I.
5 is too small.
well, I'm just saying that. Okay,
Well,
that's
what-
fine. Well, because I mean, if we think that 5, 7, or 9 is in the realm of possibility, I kind of agree with that statement. I'm just saying if we're shooting for 7 and then it becomes torturous to get that last person, are we so adamant about 7 that we don't want to consider going to 5? If we don't know how many letters of interest or
Yeah.
people of interest we're gonna get. So that's my only concern. with the
Okay.
Process.
I think then I would say let's cross that bridge if we have to, if we have an issue with applicants. But at this point, before we send out applicants, we should set a number and not, and have it be a set number before we send out.
Okay.
Requests for.
Yep.
I feel strongly about that.
Just like to think through scenarios.
Fair. Liz?
So many people.
Well, let's see, I'll tell you all my comments. I think there should be 7 members. I think we should prepare the select board meeting room and make it available to people. I think everyone should expect that staff support should be given to them. I think we should make that announcement as soon as possible. And I think probably the next meeting after November 4th should be the deadline.
Okay.
Mhm.
The only one I want to talk about is the announcement and the letter, but the other items board, so that it be held in the select board meeting room, that it be on VCTV, which would incur a cost on the town, which is not set cost, based on, because it would depend on how much, often they meet, and that we would staff it as well. And that we would consider the deadline for the letters to be the November 11th meeting, is that the?
I think it's more reasonable, given that
What is the date?
I'm looking.
that's Friday, the 11th.
So it would be, yeah, so it would be the 11th so that we could consider it for the meeting on the 15th. Is that accurate?
So I had contemplated the 11th with either the 4th or the 11th, either one of those. If you wait till the 15th, that's fine, but you're likely going to want, I just envision the potential for there to be at least one, possibly more, interviews. So, I was thinking if they come in a little earlier, we can coordinate, we could potentially get, a meeting or 2 scheduled for interviews. With the idea that, by the 1st of December, you'd be ready to make it, an appointment.
Thoughts on that?
Are we talking about all of those items or just the date?
All of them, yeah.
Okay. I would love it to be in the select board meeting room. I think we should definitely have BCTV. I think there should be one dedicated staff member specifically. Not like whoever's available, but somebody specifically dedicated to the project. And it should be clear what their role is, whether it's minutes taking or whether they're gonna take action or do work for the committee between meetings.
Okay.
And I think we should let Patrick decide that.
So does the chapter.
Yeah. I don't
So
know if the select board
Let
gets
let me,
to-
if I can speak to that, just, I think that's a little problematic and I'm pushing back as gently as humanly possible. I think, I've already spoken to, some administrative staff who said I'd be happy to take minutes, right? The commission is likely going to be in function for a year, maybe 2 years, could be 3 years. There's gonna come a time when that person's not available on that given day, as evidenced by the fact that Steve's here this evening instead of Jessica. So putting that aside,
Thank you, Steve.
there's also Town Attorney Fisher is gonna be taxed significantly, and I certainly can't replace Town Attorney Fisher. And presumably we'll have a town manager who will potentially get called upon from time to time, but I think probably less likely than you think. Bob, I don't know, you've been through this before. How much staff support is needed if one person is doing minutes and you're answering legal questions? How much like town manager time?
A lot of it depends on how philosophical the committee gets. And the last committee really wanted to look at the philosophy of how government works and what's the best possible way to govern a town, and looked at lots of different alternatives. And that's perfectly allowable. It says in whole or in part. You may have a committee that says, in general, we think we have a pretty good system. There are certainly things that can be fixed and made better. Let's look at that. That would be, another alternative. It's going to depend on, those 7 people, if you choose 7, what they decide of how grandiose their philosophical venture on this is going to get. So from staff perspective, the further, the wider it gets, it's gonna take more staff time in terms of providing that data. And the committee may, have different members of the committee that say, well, I'll research this week and you research that, and they come back together the next month and report. They may do a little of that in the beginning to then decide what's the direction they want to take further on down the road.
So I think using that feedback from someone who's actually seen the process, it sounds like maybe we should be a little bit more flexible with with how much we recommend when it comes to the staffing itself, but just that we do staff it.
Yeah.
We'll take it whichever way it comes. It doesn't, there's no right or wrong here, and the whole idea is to look at that.
Yes.
Other thought I had around that / facilitation, is that perhaps it might be helpful to set aside a little bit of money for the committee if they want to have a training in how to facilitate themselves, or hire somebody to facilitate their first organizational meeting, so they can have a really structured process, and have that done with a professional that can kick them off right.
Is that within the board's?
They can
realm?
give them money to do it.
I don't know.
We could hire someone to facilitate their meeting. We could convene them for the purposes of, once appointed, to ask them if that's something they're interested in, or, perhaps they, in their first meeting, thank you, select board, we got this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
they need some assistance, I think, this is a once in a, not quite once in a generation, but, pretty infrequent. We shouldn't leave them unsupported. We should, that process should have our government's full support, I believe.
Okay, I think to take that point then, that what we can do is just make sure that they're aware that the select board and the municipal government is there to provide adequate staffing support, and if there are things that maybe require, like, if they're looking for a facilitator or something like that, that they could bring that to the town manager, you know, that would, but, like, I really feel strongly that the select board's job here is to pick the people and then let them go. And then like, we're just, and whenever they come back to us, like, if they come back to us, checking in like with the town manager or whatever, then we need to be receptive to that, but like, I don't know if we can anticipate it now.
Sure, I just want to make sure that they have the resources that they need to do what they want to do and they can function
Yeah, yeah, no, I
with
think,
support,
no, I think that's a good.
even money.
Yeah, yeah. So do you want to change how we kind of word this staffing, Jess, at all, based on kind of all that discussion?
Maybe I would leave that to Patrick.
Okay,
So, in the announcement that you know, there probably wouldn't be a whole lot to speak of in terms of staff support. I think I think we're all on the same page. We can't fully anticipate what they're gonna need. But we should be fully supportive of their work. And I can assure you, if something unusual comes, right, we're gonna need a good deal more money than any of us contemplated. I'll come back to you and say, you know, in meetings with the Charter Review Commission, we see the need for, you know, X. Board, you know, what do you think? Can you help us out?
yeah,
Sounds like an appropriate way of doing things that would be in line with our current charter.
If it's small time stuff that we can find a way to, you know, just accommodate within the existing budget, I give you my assurance, we'll just make it happen.
Great.
Okay.
I would appreciate if that was communicated clearly in the. Yeah.
and it's kind of on,
Description and expectations of what a committee member might experience.
and we should probably do that in the interview too.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they're, yeah. How do you feel about the November 11th?
I'm getting there.
Oh, okay. Sure.
So the next thing is, I'm curious why, Patrick, you're recommending a letter
Yep.
rather than doing the form, which everybody else, every other committee uses? And is more accessible?
I'm not a huge fan of the form. The form serves its purpose for a lot of appointments that are routine and regular and annual. If it were me, and maybe this is just my own predilection, I'd want to read a letter. Tell me, you know, if I were one of you, if I were sitting on this board, I'd say, tell me, why would you like to be a member of the Charter Review Commission? What do you hope to achieve? And I'd want to give them ample space to articulate themselves. And if I were a board member, that would be useful for me, but we can do it any which way.
I mean, I would love to see perhaps a fill-outable form rather than having somebody compose a from scratch letter that just asks a couple of those questions that you've just explained.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear what you're
Daniel, want to speak to it?
Yeah. I didn't want it to be only a letter, like a thing with a stamp on it. Like, I felt like writing an email is essentially the same thing, and writing an email explaining why I want to be on the Charter Review Commission would be appropriate. And I just wanted to say that just in case it was not understood. I also think, like, maybe in the announcement, right? Please submit a letter or an email explaining why you'd like to be on the commission, why you feel like you're qualified to do this work, and what you hope to achieve out of it. Like, that would help. I'm assuming you're thinking about accessibility, right?
Yeah.
And like, we want this to be an accessible process because that'll be more likely to lead to a good group of people to consider.
I had no intention of excluding email. I think email is just dandy and,
Great.
Yeah.
What about
Well, I mean,
Instagram?
Tim?
I don't want to vote for anybody to be on a commission that's this so important if they can't come up with the reasons why they want to be on the commission.
Yeah.
So I'd rather not see a form which is like, do you feel strongly about the town? Yes, no, that's not.
Not like that, but prompts.
So
So prompts, that's what I'm saying.
I think just letting them go and we can judge them on their thoughts is a really good thing. And that could be email, it could be, but maybe not interpretive dance, so, you know, something that comes out of.
Right, that would be amazing.
So, Liz, thoughts on I was anticipating that this would probably be the one place where we would have the most discussion on kind of how we get applicants. So do you have any thoughts on, I think you said you were
Yeah.
you were in support of this, but now that you've heard some more discussion.
Right. Well, you know, we've all seen the application process. And, you know, you say, there's a paragraph, you say, why do you want to do this? And there's a paragraph that says, what have you done in the past that makes you think that you're good to do this? You know, so it's actually a lot easier if somebody just wrote a letter and cut to the chase. And it would also be possible for us in our announcement to say, send us a letter telling us, A, you know, your current involvement in civic associations, and B, the reason why you want to be on this. And that actually shortens the process. And it's just a short, sweet letter. And I think people can manage that. It's probably easier than filling out the form.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna sort of like fall on the side of the letter / email. It's a 1 in 15 year like committee. I think that we can ask people to write an email or you know, compose a letter to show their interest. What I haven't heard actually clearly agreement on is what I think that if we're gonna ask someone to write a letter, we need to be really clear what we're asking for. And so that is accessibility to me. If we just say write a letter and we don't explain it at all, that's tough. So let's just nail it down right now, board for Patrick, because we need to get this going. Like what are let's try to come up with 3 things. Daniel had 3 that I liked, but like, for example, Liz, I don't necessarily think I need to hear how you've been involved in civic. I'm not sure exactly what terminology you use, but I don't think I need that. I kind of like more, you know, why do you want to be on the committee? Why do you think you're qualified to be, or something like that? And what do you hope to accomplish? Something, and I think that's what Daniel said.
Yeah.
So
That's fine with me.
Liz is good with that? Yes. Why do you want to be on this committee? Why do you think you're qualified to be on this committee? And what do you hope to accomplish on the committee? So yeah, Liz is cool with those.
I am.
Jess?
I would love to add something around, like what role do you take in collaborative processes, or how do you function on a team, or, you know, something that is, like, I want to do it, I have this experience, this is what I want to accomplish, and I'm a team player because blah.
I would counter offer that that's a perfect interview question. And that we could reserve that for one of the questions we ask each of the applicants.
All right, I'm good with that.
Tim?
I really like the phrase letter of interest.
Okay, you don't want to provide any guidance.
I'm not gonna hold up this process if you really want guidance, but I really like the phrase letter of interest. Then people can fill that with whatever they think is necessary to convince us that
How
they're
about-
appropriate. How is that not completely accessible? Because it doesn't set up expectations to be able to answer certain questions that might be pleasing one board member over another. It's just letter of interest. Here we are.
I just have heard criticism in the past about when people have applied for things, for the town.
But personally, if the letter of interest is 3 sentences, very short, it's not gonna, I mean, that might be fine for me to read. I don't know about anybody else. Or if it's 3 pages long, that might be good too. I mean, I don't see how you're guiding. How can you tweak something so general into being somehow more fair? I don't know where the concern is.
Fair. We can also do that. I think it makes more sense for it to be, to give people guidance so that, because we don't do this very often. So it's just like this really new thing. And
Yeah.
so giving a little bit of guidance about what the board would like to hear when it comes to someone who wants to maybe be on this really rare committee. I think.
But
would
then we
help-
have to come up with, we have to all agree on that guidance.
Well, I just literally have the three things.
Three very
that I've-
non-controversial things. Can I just say that, like, as a former teacher of English, which heavily involved a lot of asking people to write things, and working with a diverse group of people, there is a big fear of being asked to write something. And so if we make this a process that is more straightforward and people know what they're being asked to write, we're more likely to receive a larger number of applications than just saying, submit letter of interest. And that will get you the kind of like very narrow group of people who feel super comfortable in these kinds of processes. And actually, I think it'll benefit the process to have a wider range of people apply. And so this is called scaffolding, and we will scaffold what we're asking for people. And if people want to do something different, that's up to them. But like at minimum, I would like to hear those three things that we talked about. And so it could be a letter of interest. Some things you might choose to write about are X, Y, Z. But you know, I've worked with a lot of people who are really great thinkers, or you know, we're not asking this Charter Review Commission to become writers. We're kind of, we're asking them to take a look at this legal document and figure out whether it works for the town and whether it could be better. And so that kind of mind is not necessarily the same mind that can also write a really great letter easily off the bat when they've got a time crunch and they're thinking, am I the right person for this?
I do, you know,
And now,
I'm totally fine with going in that route. I think what everyone's doing is leaping to the interview process in these considerations.
I think that's.
Because a letter of interest could be, I'd like to be on the committee, then they're officially got a letter in, right?
Well, then, but then if that's what you want, then let's just say notify the town manager if you're interested.
provide
Well-
your name.
Right, well, that's
And then
exactly what
we'll-
you're saying, right? If it's, no, and if we're okay with that, and this is just Patrick's recommendation, I don't have to listen to it. Like, we can just say, if you're interested, call the town manager's office. And then we'll set you up for an interview. So if,
I mean, if that's the concern, then maybe that's the way we should go, because if the concern is like a discomfort with writing
Just
a letter in English, then just open it up to everybody then.
I think that the letter would provide us just a little bit of background and evidence that, you know, maybe they can read and write. And that's important.
Okay.
And the scaffolding is a really basic way to help people craft that, but it's not spoon feeding anyone. And, you know, I believe that seeing two forms of communication, written and a conversation, can give us enough information to make a decision, but maybe just, oh yeah, I'm interested, might not be enough written information.
I agree.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, okay. Man, I love this board.
Didn't know we'd end up here.
Yeah, okay, so,
Oh my God.
oh yeah, and then, yeah, on November 11th,
Yeah, that's like, what, 3 weeks from now?
it'd be 3 weeks from Friday.
3 weeks from Friday. And then we would interview folks over the course of November and maybe the beginning of December.
Correct.
And then make nominations and appointments all in one meeting.
Correct.
Yeah, 3 weeks. Feels okay.
Tim?
Yeah, and
Oh,
I was
wait.
starting to
Oh,
pick
Liz
up
has
that,
her hand.
maybe
Pat?
you wanted us to bump it up to where you had recommended, and then,
No,
and then I was thinking
I'm really
maybe
good with the
we could
11th.
just
I
let
was
them run
looking at
over.
the
We could
calendar.
say the 4th, but let it run over.
Oh, that gets really, Liz.
I just wanted to understand where we are. We went from no letter to, are we back to a letter with
Yes, I think we're back
with-
to a letter
The
and
slightly
with
structured-
Daniel's guidance?
a very
on the
slightly
letter?
structured letter.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Prompts. And I would say, like, we're not going to exclude anyone from the interview process, as long as they just send us something, right? We're gonna use that as something to like dig our teeth into a little before we put them in front of us and talk to them. Just like we do with
Yes.
committees.
Form.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so you're good with the 11th, Tim? How you feel about the 11th? Good with the 11th? Patrick,
May I just make sure I got it? I would like to be able to say that the board intends to convene a 7-member charter revision commission as per the charter. Please submit a letter of interest, either in hard copy or by email to the following addresses, and indicate why you would like to be on the commission, describe your qualifications and what you would hope to accomplish, and to do so by the 11th.
Diane, I think it sounds good to me. Board members, sound good? You all? Yep.
And for more information about what this submission might be, can they contact the town manager's office? Is that appropriate?
Oh, well,
Maybe
so-
contact the assistant town
I
manager.
think it is. I think
Sure,
it is.
because if you get specific questions on that, Patrick, just, you're welcome to send them through to me and I can talk about the charter with them
Sure.
or answer questions from prior experience, so.
Yeah.
I'm
If
happy to
someone's
do that. I
considering-
mean,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm have 50 people asking that or not, but, wouldn't.
They could speak to a
Eh,
board
we
member.
pay you a flat fee, right?
Right.
So,
So Bob gave a little presentation about what it is. Patrick kind of spoke about it as well. I hope that in whatever material we put out into the world, because I know that there are many people in this room watching and many people online, right? But like, we'll probably need to get a press release out, and I hope that the press release will say what the Charter Review Commission does. Not like extensively, but like at least a paragraph
May
explaining
I ask,
what it does.
if
that
the
they
quoted section from the charter is
That's what it
in
should be.
keeping with what you're contemplating?
in fact, in some ways, it should stay within the borders of the charter. So
True.
that it's like, we
Yeah,
should
we're
really
not
be
kind of, like,
speaking to,
preempting.
yeah.
Yeah.
We should really be just speaking to what the charter
Yeah, no,
charter
that's
says
fair.
about the Charter Review Commission.
I think it's particularly helpful, the final sentence here or the final 2 sentences that speak to the rights, the powers, the duties, or responsibilities as described in the charter. And then the commission may propose amendments and may redraft the charter in whole or in part.
May I just suggest then that as we are referencing this document, that we link to where this lives on the town website and say to people if they would like a hard copy of the town charter, where they can obtain one. Because when you read this document, you're like, oh, we could do something about this. Like, you should like get curious about what's in this, because there's some interesting stuff.
I can tell you, Bob and I reach for it every week.
Yes.
So,
I'll tell you what.
Can we include that in the press release?
How to get a hold of the charter?
Yeah,
Sure,
and make copies readily available.
you betcha.
Thank you.
And quote, I tell ya, Bob and I reach for it every week.
Yeah. There's some interesting stuff in
What?
There's some interesting, Daniel Quip, there's some interesting stuff. in here.
That's no exaggeration. I
It's
mean,
not.
every week we. Yeah.
I would hope that the interim town manager and the town attorney are constantly referenced.
Yes.
It's the playbook.
And perhaps even the
It's
town clerk.
it's the rule book, it really.
So before I have one question, Bob. So did I hear you right, that the town charter is a statute?
Right, it has to be ratified by the Vermont legislature. So when you go, if you take a look at Title 24, the appendix version of that will have all of the town charters across the state. Some are governmental charters like Brattleboro, others are just more creation charters.
So when I reference the town charter, could I say town statute?
It's more proper to reference the town charter, but in fact, when it is cited at the Supreme Court level, it's generally out of Title 24 appendix as to the section numbers and the chapter numbers,
Yeah.
which are not the same. So that gets into weeds here.
Come on.
But when we talk about
Come
Article
on.
3, Section 2 in the actual statute books, the numbers, the language is the same, it's just the section numbers don't line up.
That's, I'm sorry, Tim. Just, okay, so, thank you, Bob.
Chair being an attorney situation
Uh,
we have going on here.
Yeah.
It's about when it finally gets to the legislature. I'm not sure who would answer it, but I'm curious, like, do they vote on it as a whole? Or will they pick it apart like our
It goes through, I believe it's Government Ops Committee, and then, it's voted upon as a whole. But there are certain things that the legislature, because we're a Dillon's rule state, if you only have the given to you from the legislature, that, for instance, if you said we're gonna change the town of Brattleboro charter so that we can create all these taxes that are not available to us, you might not want to expect that the legislature is going to say, oh, for Brattleboro, that works. So think of
they
who
want.
your audience is up there.
Yeah. And, kind of to the same question, but on the RTM side. So does the commission bring it to RTM as a slate, or could they bring it as individual items?
Generally, it's brought as individual articles or individual amendments. It may be that you're just adding a section to one of the articles.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on how large or small the committee decides to go with.
Yep. Okay, board, is there any other, discussion on this? Liz, you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, I don't think there needs to be a vote. We've just given direction.
Yeah.
Great. Bob, thank you so much for hanging out,
Very welcome.
yeah, I really appreciate it. Board, I think in that case, there's just, one more motion I'm looking for. Liz,
I move to adjourn.
Liz has made a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.